problem.
What happened to the background? There we go. I want you to know. Are you not live?
No, I'm not live. No.
Okay. All right. Well, then neither of us are live tonight.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. I want you to know, just for you, I changed my background.
I kind of figured.
Hold on. From an AI generated space thing that was the theme to something made in Blender or whatever by like one of my fans. All right. I got rid of AI art on the stream just for you.
Good.
Right? But I love AI art. But anyways,
I hate you. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm out. Peace.
It's gonna be, dude. I could just clip that and be like the shortest interview ever. Yeah. Just talk shit on you in videos for like 2 months, just farming content.
Endless content. Yeah.
Just endless. Look at this pussy. Oh man.
Can you imagine this guy in bed? Yeah, his wife's disappointed with him all the time. Can't last. Yeah.
Well, your wife stayed with you, I think, right? Mine didn't. So, one win for you, brother. All right.
I guess so. Okay, I'll take it. Okay, I'll take what I can get at this point.
Yeah. So, nice to meet you, Spiro.
Nice to meet you too.
Is it Spiro or Spiro?
So there's a running joke. It's technically correct is Spiro, but everyone calls me Spiro, and I just don't care because I've been called a lot worse. So you go ahead and do whatever makes you happy.
I've tried to tell everyone in the internet space that just call me Scott. And because Fabian Liberty is a channel and Fabian is a name, they just call me Fabian. I accept it.
Okay. Well, I'll call you Scott. How about that? I'll do you a solid. I'll call you Scott.
You call me whatever you want at this point. So, just as a precursor, welcome everyone that's watching the video. Spiro. I have Spiro here. I don't know if you're recording on your end. If you want this recording, I'll send it to you.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And so I am, for your audience, I am an anarcho-capitalist, anarcho-objectivist, hardcore libertarian, if that's easier for you to understand. Not these fake ass libertarian pragmatists, but all the way down. It's pro-capitalist as they come. And I am what you seem to think is like a full-blown cultist, right? I'm fully into AI.
Right.
To understand how deeply I am into AI, if I had to choose between saving AI, killing AI, or personally strangling 1,000 puppies to death, I would happily strangle 1,000 puppies to death back to back if it meant we could continue down the path of AI. Okay. But nevertheless, a lot of people, I saw something pop up on Twitter. They were like, hey man, you're super pro AI. I know somebody that's super anti AI that knows a lot about this shit. You should chat with them. And I was like, yeah, I'm always willing to learn. Like my area is philosophy, economics, and debates. My area is not programming. Talking to somebody that actually understands this at a deeper level. I perused some of your work. It's kind of all over the place, so I kind of just like did a mishmash to kind of get a sense of you. Yeah. But you clearly, like, this is a regular thing that you discuss, that you look at the relevant research, you look at the academic articles that nobody fucking reads, or they pretend to read because they put it into Grok, and then Grok hallucinates what's actually in the article. And we move on. So I'm like, yeah. So my goal tonight, after you introduce yourself, of course, is to try not to be too confrontational, but at the same time know that I am the cultist that you hate. And I want you to turn me into a skeptic, and then we can have some back and forth on it, right? Like I want you to poke holes in all of my stuff because I remain unconvinced, right? Yeah. And hopefully we can have a wide range of conversations on this, and it'd be really interesting. So I appreciate you so much for this. I'm not live streaming tonight because Liquid Zulu and Dave Smith are debating, which is like the biggest thing to ever happen in the ANCAP space right now. So I was like, no, fuck that. I'm not live streaming. I'm just going to record this and put it out later. Yeah. I apologize because normally I'd have like 40 to 80 people so we could like, branch out with, but hopefully some of them will watch the video.
Yeah.
I'm long-winded. I'll shut up now. I'm used to a live stream like 2 hours before I go. So Spiro, please tell me more about yourself and let's get this party started and where people can find you and everything, of course.
Sure. So first of all, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. greatly. And I typically do two things with regards to AI. It's either full on like proper formal debates about AI, which
Hmm.
is now becoming more mainstream. So that's great. Less work for me. There are people who are far more competent, especially in debating, that are going to debate AI. So that's great. But I kind of paved the way for AI debates. If I'm going to be honest, I was one of the first people to get in there and start doing it. But I also just have the discussions like you brought up, where yes, I will actually go on a boring stream and read a scientific study all the way through. And if with in front of like five people, you start off with 15 and it drops to five pretty damn fast when you're reading a scientific article,
Brother,
right?
do I not know it? I've
Yeah,
had so many times where I'm streaming to like 50, 60, 70 people. And then
yeah,
like, I'm like, all right, boys, now we're going to discuss, because I don't read AI research. It's not my domain.
yeah,
But I did go to grad school for like counseling. And so sometimes like when people are like, oh, this pop psychology thing, I'm like, okay,
right,
I have to explain why all of this is wrong.
right,
And then like you get into it and people are like, oh, I'm
right.
going to go watch a Minecraft video, brother.
Yep,
And you're like, all right, man.
yep, yep. It's the ADD riddled brains for the most part that are
Which may or may not be partly AI to blame on
because of
that.
AI. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
I'm gonna
right.
fix
That's
my
right.
camera, but I'm listening.
Okay, okay, sounds good. So yeah, that's been the one of the primary focus that I've had recently. But my history, I'm a bit long-winded too. That's probably a good thing when you're a streamer because you tend to have to talk to yourself for the most part, so it's good. But I started out talking about the tech industry, which is what led me into talking about AI, because the tech
Mhm.
industry has become completely lost. They've lost their ability to create quality products overall. There obviously you
Mhm.
can find exceptions, but generally speaking, if you compare the tech industry as a whole in a holistic manner today to what it was 20 years ago, it's very, very different. And AI is essentially, in my opinion, the boxing up of all the terrible decisions that the tech industry has been making for the last at least 10 years, maybe a bit longer, and it's just automating it away. And
Mhm.
for people like yourself, I completely understand why you're bought into it, but it's a very insidious kind of like underhanded thing. So those are the kinds of things I talk about. That's why I bring up the scientific studies, the stats, the opinion articles, my opinions, all of
Right.
that, right? So it's started off with like complaints against the tech industry, which has made me a pariah in terms of hiring. It's been difficult to find work because people are like, "Oh, I don't want to work with this guy. He seems like aggressively negative." It's like, you guys don't get it. Like, I'm trying to point to the stuff that we're doing wrong because we can easily fix it, right? We can easily make this better. And if you wanted to talk to somebody who knows how things are going wrong, you're going to probably be hard pressed to find someone who knows it better than me. Like, that's why you should hire me, but it
Yeah.
doesn't come across that way, right? So I
Well,
get it.
it's like Elon with like, firing people based off of how many lines of code
Right.
they put together. It's like, hey man, aren't the people that write the most efficiently the people that probably write the least amount of code?
Correct.
Wouldn't that
Yeah.
aren't you just kind of getting rid of your most efficient workers? I mean, like
Yes.
that's a bad way of looking at things. And I feel like that kind of that energy of like middle management and stuff,
Yeah.
is like, and that energy of like HR departments and like, because I follow it tangentially, and like I noticed two things that made me realize we were in an AI bubble
Mhm.
before Michael Burry, because I know there's a bit more of a popularity of it because Michael Burry came out
That's
and
right.
shorted Palantir and
That's right.
Nvidia, and like all of a sudden all the money was like, what do you mean we're in an AI bubble? And I
Right.
noticed two things. The first thing I noticed was, because like I'm not an AI, like I'm not a programmer. I don't know anything about this. But as a libertarian, I have a lot of like programmers, coders, autistic people in my audience, right? So there's some overlap there.
Yeah.
And one of the things I noticed was like people bitching about like HR departments talking about like how many t-shirts is this
Yeah.
project, and like
Oh God.
and like and
Yes,
like and
please.
I was like what is this nonsense, right? So I look into it a little more, and then the second thing I noticed was, and this is the psychology part of me, right? This is the economics part, not
Yeah.
the I don't know anything about the industry, right? But I know people. And I saw like the fourth Asian girl that graduated from high school go get a six-figure job in California. And I
Yeah.
was like, This is a bubble, right? Like this is a
Yep.
bubble. Like this is clearly like there's just malinvestment everywhere, right? And I
Yep.
think people are starting to notice because, like I said, because of Michael Burry and probably because of RAM prices, right? I think
Yep.
people are starting to pay attention
We're
because they're
paying
like,
attention. Yeah.
why is my RAM? And kind of also to your point, you know, one of the things that I notice is I'm a little bit of an AMD fanboy. I try not to be, but I am. And like one of the things I noticed was AMD increased its production of graphics cards, its
Yep.
GPUs, right? And they got contract with Netflix, they got a contract with PlayStation, they got a contract with Microsoft, and then their market share went down.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, so you're making more GPUs on the market for the first time in years. Price to performance, because they've always kind of been price to performance competitive with Intel CPUs, but they've never really been price to performance competitive with NVIDIA GPUs, right? Like, let's just be honest. As much as I love AMD,
Of course. Yeah.
it was still better to buy an NVIDIA GPU.
I think that's
But
just objectively true. Yeah.
and then over like the last 6 or 7 years, they've been competitive with NVIDIA.
Yeah.
Maybe not in terms of quality, but in terms of price to performance.
Yeah.
It was smart to buy an AMD GPU.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so all of that's happening and your market share went down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, they're just like printing these things.
Yeah.
And like to such a degree that like regular people trying to, and then like I went to Micro Center not recently and we were talking about, you know, to help my buddy build his computer and like RAM was super expensive. It's like, oh yeah, another thing is people are just sick of paying AWS like 50 grand, you
Yep.
know, a month and like they're building their own servers. And so like I'm with you. There's a bubble, there's a lot of malinvestment, there's a lot of stupid usage of AI.
Yeah.
That doesn't make me anti-AI, right?
Right.
But I would love to learn more about all of those things because I am pro AI. I'm hardcore pro AI, but that doesn't mean that I don't recognize that there's all kinds of horror stories, pitfalls. You know,
Yeah.
another thing too, just one more thing that I noticed, you know, because again, market psychology focus. You know, I saw ChatGPT come out with an announcement that they're not, you know, they're going to reduce the sourcing of, you know, their models from Reddit by like 80%, I think. And then
Yep.
immediately Reddit loses $8 billion in market value. And
Yep.
it's like, okay, that is like the rubber band effect that is occurring in the market goes to show that there's a whole lot of people that are bought into the concept of AI, but they have no idea what they're investing in. They're
Yep.
just throwing money, hoping that they're the lucky one and that the startup or the thing they're funding will work. And as an ANCAP, what terrifies me the most is knowing, you know, Trump forcibly, we'll say coercively, getting 10% of Intel and being so connected with, you know,
Yep.
Palantir and
Yep.
Peter Thiel. And
Yep.
it's like, what worries me is that states and governments, you know, especially China and America apparently, are going to fuck up the entire free market of this, not let businesses fail. Step in when these billions of dollars disappear because of, you know, whatever little micro bubbles burst. And we're going to get a horrible product that does horrible things to people and ruins our lives. So I have a lot of fears and a lot of concerns.
Yeah.
So please understand, I'm not a full blown cultist, maybe,
Right.
but I am philosophically very convinced that AI is a necessary element of the future and that it is likely to be, at least at some point, the greatest labor saving device humanity has ever created.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a few points there. Let me put the economic aside for a moment. Stuff I've talked about that's also related in addition to the market stuff. Technocracy. I've gone over the history of technocracy. I've done an entire set of series going from the 1930s onward. I even went over the magazines in the 1930s, the Technocracy Handbook, Elon Musk's grandfather, etc. I could pull it up right now and show the audience, but you can also find it on my streams. I think I start around, I don't know, Daily Tech News episode 82 or 84 or something, and I literally bring
Anything
up.
you want to send me or pull
Yeah.
up on
Okay.
stream, either way, we're good. You
Okay.
can DM it to me or you can pull it up on stream. I don't care. Like I like this to just go free flow wherever you want to take it, brother.
Okay. Sounds good. So I'll pull up the magazine here, and then just while I do that, There's also societal factors. We talked about like the ADHD brain. This has been true since the days of social media. Social media has been
Mhm.
scientifically proven to cause problems. AI makes it worse. The economic leading into the economic, it's a $40 trillion industry right now, which is greater than the U.S. national debt. The amount of venture capitalist investment money that goes into the tech industry is over 90% AI. So if you're, and most of that is open AI, by the way. So if you're not in AI, you're not
Mhm.
getting investor money. The idea of having entire swaths of departments taken over by AI. UK is facing an over 50% regret rate doing that. They're rehiring people, offshoring them, lowering the prices on departments that they've let go. So the UK is kind of leading the curve on the regret rate. China as a leader in AI, because they are actually a leader in AI. If you look at the things that China is doing over there, and yet even they are openly admitting that there are certain things that AI simply cannot do. For example,
Mhm.
sign language in like Cantonese or whatever. I've been over studies with that, where it just can't get it right. It can't get accents right, Irish accents, UK accents, etc. There's other societal factors, like people are making religions out of this. People are self-deleting. Kids are losing their lives to this. People are marrying these things. There's the stuff that people aren't talking about, which is hardware issues. I could get into that, how manufacturing has inherent flaws sometimes, and what it means for a single bit, like one a literal one or zero being flipped, causes a catastrophic 0% success rate, and you wouldn't even know it exists. And that's been happening as well since the history of hardware. The
Mhm.
entire history of all of these financial things that you talked about, which is they don't even know what they're doing. They're just dumping money into it. Guess what? That's been the industry I've been in since I started programming. That's how this industry operates. They just throw money at the wall and hope it sticks because there's tons of money to be had. And it's just, in particular, this is just one of the biggest things. And then the last thing that I'll add here before we jump into any particular topic you like, including the magazine I have, I tend to be a bit there's a definition game here that I play on purpose
Mhm.
because I want to engage in the discussion. I want people to get riled up and upset with me, and I'm happy to take the heat. Because if people don't get upset, if I go the route that I would normally go, which is a more nuanced take, people will go, "Oh, okay, like yeah, this makes sense." It's like, okay, but then we're not really talking about the problems. So when I say cult, I do that on purpose, because
Mhm.
what cults actually do, when you, because I was in one, I was 30 plus years as a Jehovah's Witness, and I had to escape that cult. One of the things that they'll do is they'll discourage you from seeking outside information and friends, and so there's a whole list of things. What you're talking about,
Yeah,
though,
some of that is you're never going to get a one-to-one with, I think,
right?
online
That's right.
movements,
There's
right?
there's like there's
Because
like
like
a Venn diagram,
there,
right?
yeah, there's like an asymptote, right? Like, because
Yeah,
obviously, you know what I mean. Like, even if we look at Jehovah Witnesses, right? Like Jehovah Witness is a cult.
right,
But it's not like Scientology because they don't have camps where you're going through sleep deprivation, right?
right,
Like Scientology would clearly be worse. I
right.
think I think ideological beliefs that an ideological possession of certain political tribes or certain beliefs around, let's say, AI certainly might mirror that to a certain degree.
Yes.
And I wouldn't necessarily disagree with you. I find that in politics a lot, right? Because most
Oh
most
yeah.
of what I'm doing is attacking socialism and attacking communism and attacking liberalism and neoliberalism, all of it, and then being castigated as a conservative right winger, and then being like, no, 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 you don't understand. I hate you too because you're socialist, and then
Right.
them being like, what? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
How
Like,
does
so
this
so I
work? Yeah.
like, what do you mean I'm a socialist? I had a
Yeah.
debate recently where I debated that Donald Trump is the most socialist president of my lifetime.
Yeah.
And boy, did that piss off some right wingers. And I'm like, dude, tariffs, fucking, it was a whole thing. I don't want to get into it,
That's
but
fine.
yeah. So I guess my question first and foremost, before we get into the nitty gritty,
Sure.
is: are you anti the concept of AI, or are you maybe similar to me, but obviously leaning more anti AI than I am? Um, you know, like, look, this is a good tool, but it is just full of corporate power, um, misuse, and misappropriation of our resources, and causing a bunch of problems because nobody knows what the fuck they're doing with it.
Yeah, this is why I would not peg you in as a cultist, because the as a full-on cultist anyways. Let me at least give you that much room.
Uh-huh.
The Because there's a definition game here that I gloss over on purpose in order to again to pull people in to actually have the discussion.
Hmm.
So the definition here is, well, first of all, to answer your question directly, it's not even a good tool. It's just not.
Okay.
Just it's statistically and ontologically it's not. But even if it was an okay tool, which in some cases I could grant, depending on your use case, there are other problems with this. But it comes down to what this particular what we mean to say when we say AI. So,
Hmm.
as an example, if you are creating a video game and you have an NPC, a non-playable character, and that non-playable character has to find you in order to attack you, we call that AI. So you will literally see the words AI or artificial intelligence inside of the code base for that non-playable
Right.
character.
I think
But
I think
that's
we're I think we're talking mostly, at least in the current context, about language models, right?
the
Like, we're
large
not
language
really
models.
talking about,
Yes.
yeah,
Right.
LLMs, right?
Right.
Like, and we're like, you and I aren't talking about, your cell phone as a piece of AI, or like,
Right.
like a chess AI that's designed to play chess, right? Like, that's not
Right.
really what we're talking about. Though I think maybe the chess thing a little bit, but also we're not talking about AGI, right? Like, we're not talking about self-aware
Correct.
general intelligence.
Correct. But
Yeah.
but that's the crux, right? Because when you say something like, I think it's going to be the biggest like automation change in history, I can
Yeah.
see why you get there. But my point is not that we don't get to that point. My point is that we can't get to it with this thing that we're talking about now that we've specified what it is. Large
Okay.
language models are not going to get us there. Something like the chess engine, even, or
Hmm.
AlphaFold for protein folding, or other kinds of AI that we've had in the past 20 years, 15 to 20 years approximately, basically since
Hmm.
2005. Those kinds of things have far more likelihood of being way more successful, far more utility, and far more disruptive to certain industries. E-commerce being a big one. There's lots of AI that you and I wouldn't now fit into the term large language model. It has nothing to do with that, but you'd still call it AI. So when you
Hmm.
say, hey, I think AI will be a big changer, yeah, so do I. But I just don't think it's this thing, right? And so that's where the conversation is
Okay.
focused on. And
Okay.
that's where all the money and all this crap goes into. The
It's very interesting because, like, pulling away from the tech, right? Knowing nothing about the tech, I've had some conversations, and one of the things that I've spoken with people about, is, I am optimistic about AI at some point.
Mhm.
With enough iterations of game theory, right? Like maybe 100 years, maybe 1,000 years, whatever it is.
Sure.
Because in my mind, the only truly market successful AI would be one that is least likely to lead to contradictions, right?
Right.
Like, whatever that may be it in the code, be it in some way that it's thinking, right? Like, if AI is being programmed to believe that A equals not A, right? At a like a fundamental objectivist perspective, or
Yeah.
or that one equals zero or some shit, right?
Yeah.
However you want to say it, right? Then that is going to be less successful than one that is more, I'm going to use air quotes here because I understand that sometimes there's not a one-to-one between
Yeah.
the code or the program versus how humans perceive, but whatever is closest to rational thinking,
Yeah.
in big air quotes, is likely to be successful. And that is like one of my, but I could totally understand the concept of, like, okay, but LLMs and the way that they train have been shown to maintain whatever biases exist in whatever it's trained,
Yeah.
and also come up with, like, there's so many problems between hallucinations, between not understanding nuance because it's not actually thinking, it's aggregating,
Yeah.
and all of these other things. I could totally buy the concept that LLMs are just a really fun thing that, like, produces some cool images and, like, has some limited utility in terms of like me asking a question and getting an answer, but that it is like largely economically and politically destructive.
Yes.
Um, I can totally buy that, right?
Yeah.
I'm fine with that
Yeah.
if I were to learn more, and that's why I wanted to talk with you. Is like I don't think you'll be able to convince me that AI in and of itself is bad, but if you couch it that way and saying, look, LLMs are just like there's close to hundreds of trillions of dollars if we look at the entire world, or
Yeah.
very soon to be, because this train won't fucking stop. Is just this horrendous investment, and it's like the worst way to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can buy that. I can buy that. I'd love to learn more about that.
Yeah. I think it's one of the worst investments that we're about to see, maybe ever, maybe in the history of ever, considering the amount of money that's gone into it. But that, I think you nailed that argument exactly. That's my argument, is that these large language models don't operate this way. So, okay, so I can show the magazine, then we can talk about a bit about how they work, how this works, and just go into it. But I just want to the magazine I like showing because it's very clear, and that even in the 30s, you're going to see here. I'll do a share screen. You're going to see that there's a lot of overlap with. I think that should work. I hope that works. There we go. There's a lot of overlap between the terminology. You're gonna see some words here, and you're gonna be like, "Holy crap! They're saying this today." It's almost the 2030s, and they've been saying it since the 1930s. So this is from the 1930s. This is from Howard Scott, the creator of Technocracy, and the idea was very similar to this kind of stuff you hear Elon and others talking about. Robots will replace you. You'll get universal basic income. You'll get energy bucks, which is the precursor to cryptocurrency. It will eliminate things like crime, because people won't need to steal, because you can't steal. You're going to steal someone's energy bucks, but the energy bucks belong to a single individual ever. They can't even be inherited. So you're not going to be able to use them even if you did steal them, right?
Yeah, well, as an ANCAP, I'm certainly not utopian.
Right.
I do think there is some merit to the concept that,
Yes.
if you can have AI that reduces or that increases the oh my God, why is my brain farting right now? It's been a rough couple days.
That's okay.
If you do have it, like if you can increase the productivity of labor, right?
Yes.
Then by its very nature, you're going to reduce price.
Right.
If you reduce price, right, then new elements of the economy are going to open up that were previously not profitable.
Right.
That doesn't magically create UBI. I mean, that's a government program, number one.
Right.
Which I would be avidly against. But I mean, I'm not fully against that concept that like that would occur. But yeah, let's continue.
Okay. Yeah. And I agree. And if you look at some of the things that it brings up, even in this article, the train, for example, that's like a massive automation machine. It's not computerized. It's not digital with ones and zeros, but exactly to your point, this is exactly what they say is like the concept in and of itself isn't exactly bad. We enjoy using trains, and trains get smaller, and we improve on trains. And you can make that case too about technology we've created today. And then they bring up the brain. The photovoltaic cell gives a brain to machines. And so the concept of artificial intelligence is already taking shape in the 1930s. And if you read through a magazine like this, or through the Technocracy Handbook, which I have read, you get the sense of how these people thought back then, and exactly the same way that they think today. And all of this stuff led to things like transhumanism and cyborgs. And even gender fluidity, because who the hell cares what gender you are if you're just an energy machine at the end of the day, which is exactly what they thought. And then if you really just want to like a little mind-blowing, I don't think it's in this one. So here, I'll stop sharing this one. But if you want a little mind-blowing thing, reading through the Technocracy Handbook, and you can fact check me on this, it's available widely online. At the very end, there's a technocrat map of what would be required to get technocracy to be implemented throughout the world. And it is essentially all of North America and all of South America. It's all got to be one big thing. Now, Do you remember when Elon Musk was in the White House and he was buddy buddy with Trump? And Trump was just seemed to suddenly bring up stuff about Greenland. It seemed almost out of the blue. It was kind of weird, and he hasn't really brought it up since.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's in the Technocracy Handbook. If Greenland is required, and Elon Musk's grandfather was a co-founder of Technocracy with Howard Scott. So
I mean, like I don't want to get too conspiratorial about it. I mean, like the way
it is
the way
conspiratorial, yes.
yeah, for sure. Like the way that I view it, and this is, I trying to use Occam's razor from my political perspective, is that it appears, by all accounts, to me, insofar as Donald Trump is thinking clearly at all, which is already kind of a given. It appears to me that he is of the mind that we have to become an American empire as
Sure.
opposed to a global empire.
Yes.
It seems to me that he wants to be an empire, right? He wants to maintain the kind of like, the capitalistic, I say capitalistic, very much emphasizing the IC at the end of that, right? Because I am a hardcore capitalist, but my definition of capitalism would not match most's.
Right.
It seems to me that he is pulling, towards focusing on regime change in Venezuela, talking about, fucking bullying Canada and Greenland into a state. It seems like he's trying to pull back from a global empire into an American empire, to very little success, I might add, while he's mostly just mashing the keyboard and seeing what happens. But that seems to be like the vibe that I get from it. Less. I mean, like maybe it was something that Elon Musk mentioned at one point or something. I don't know. I don't know what the fucking value of Greenland is other than like the naval base, but like we could just expand our naval base there. I don't know why the fuck we need to take over Greenland. It makes no goddamn sense, but whatever.
Yeah. I mean, these two things don't have to be mutually exclusive, but in the Technocrat Handbook, the idea, and they actually implemented technocracy in Chile in the 1970s. They did this, and so the entire reason that they need location based stuff is, let's say that you expand your military base over to Greenland. Well, you're going to need data and information out of there. And the idea behind technocracy is more than just the digital information. It's who is also put in charge of making decisions based on that digital information. And you need a lot of damn information if you're going to have people who are like PhD scientists making decisions instead of bureaucrats and politicians, which is the idea, right?
Yeah, I mean,
so you kind of need to take over Greenland.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, technocracy of this kind fails for the exact same reason that liberal democracy or socialism or communism fails, which is that none of them can solve the economic calculation problem. And this fantasy that like an AI supercomputer is going to beat out price mechanism is, to me, exactly that. It's a fantasy that the amount of information that is contained within the price mechanism is the information of everyone's subjective values.
Yes.
And capitalist investors attempting to, predict the future and being rewarded for that. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I would have the same critique of technocracy as I would of communism or of liberal democracy, which is that, central planning fails when compared to the market.
Right.
I'll just leave it at that.
I generally, I agree. So so I'll pull back the conspiracy and whatnot, but yes, generally I agree. It's failed. It's been tried and it's failed, etc.
Everybody loves the hate Elon Musk. I don't think he's that bad.
That's right.
You know what I mean? But but it is what it is.
But I guess the overall point though that I'm trying to bring up here is that this isn't anything new. This has been going on for a long time, and you can see the whispers or even the strong sentiments of it in today's age in the tech industry. And so the way that AI works today, we'll just dig into that a little bit here. So in specific large language models, they are, I'm hand waving a bit of the processes here, but you can think of it as a probability machine. That's essentially it. So you can pretend to be what an AI does right now. If I asked you to finish this sentence, the sky is, what would you say?
Probabilistically, we're probably going to say blue.
Right. Yes. And so there you go.
Might be green. You know what I mean? Whatever.
Right. Right. And so that's really what it comes down to. So if you imagine all the words that get put into an LLM, every single word, and the amount of times that word shows up, and then you plot it on like a 3D map, kind of like the background that we have right now. If you imagine that those points in space, X, Y, Z coordinates, are all places where words show up in relation to each other, and that's it. And so what happens is, if once you narrow in on one word, it's going to look at all the related words in a spatial area, and then it's going to jump to the next word and then look at those and then just try and build a chain of them, right? And so part of the problem becomes, well, you have a probability machine, and every time you roll the dice, sure, there's a probability you're going to roll a 6, but there's also a probability you're going to roll a 1. And every time you go to Vegas, you're going to lose and you're going to win and all that stuff, right? That's why these things have an ontological being. That's how they're built. They are ontologically built to not be consistent and to only focus on language. It's just words and the relation to each other. That's essentially it. That's how it works. And from there, you can make all kinds of logical inferences about why this is so problematic and absolutely idiotic that we essentially have strapped trillions of dollars into it. And when it comes to video generation, which is different than words, video generation is essentially the same thing, but just in pixels. So it literally just like throws spaghetti at the wall, just throws random pixels and then removes the pixels until it matches either a source image or something that it's related to, like it's tagged as a related image to what it's trying to achieve. That's it. There you go. That now you know how these things work. And from there you can make all kinds of absolutely reasonable kind of like inferences, I would suppose, or deductions about why these things go wrong and why these might sometimes go right as well.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm sympathetic to the argument that because it's a probabilistic machine, that it's not actually thinking, right? That this kind of bakes in error, right? Like error is baked in,
Yes.
right? But I guess my problem with that is, like just purely from like a philosophical standpoint, is human thinking is similar to this as well,
Right.
There, we have baked in biases and errors, in that, humans believe in contradictions all the time,
Yeah.
right? Overwhelmingly, humans believe in contradictions. And that doesn't just because that is baked into it doesn't necessarily necessitate that it loses some functional use, right? Like I use AI. I use Grok predominantly, mostly because I'm a streamer, so I'm paying for a blue check mark on Twitter,
Right.
and it's integrated. It's just the
Yeah.
simplest one, right? And when I'm preparing for debates, I make no bones about this. When I'm preparing for debates, I'm like, hey, here's an argument that I'll be making. Here's this. Here's what my opponent's argument, is arguing. What are common arguments that are often made by this? Here's their YouTube channel link. Scrub through this, right? Like the amount of it's still doing a probability, but it is saving me thousands of hours that I literally could not do. Like there's no way that I could prep for a debate and watch every single YouTube video that a person puts out.
Right.
Right now, it's going to hallucinate. It's going to make up shit. It's going to get things wrong. Right. But also, if I watch 1,000 hours, I'm going to get shit wrong. I'm going to hallucinate. I'm going to misremember things. Right. And then my brain, just like a dream, right, is going to reconstruct that narrative based off of a few key details. Maybe one or two of them is misremembered and create a false narrative.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to get a lot of information and save a lot of time that I otherwise just simply could not spend. And so I guess my question is how does this defeat the kind of like the functional usage of LLMs, or does it just contain it? Does it just say, hey, it's important to recognize that because there's biases and things like this, it's a real retarded idea to replace a coder with this, right? Or to replace oversight with this, or to have this running critical infrastructure with limited oversight. Like totally get all of those things.
Right.
But that doesn't make the LLM fucking useless. Like it's super useful.
Right.
As a labor saving device right now. But if implemented poorly, like they do in many companies, right, then it becomes, a waste of fucking money. Like I guess You feel me? Like,
Yeah. Well, so I try and look at this from a holistic perspective, which is how much are you going to lose when a human makes an error versus how much are you going to lose when these LLMs make an error? So there's a few points to cover here. One is that if anything positive, if there's a silver lining I can point to, it's that people have been awakened to the potential utility that the tech industry is capable of providing them, or like potential, not actually providing them, but like, I wish that the tech industry would have given me this sooner. Look at how much utility I get out of it, etc. And the fact that people are starting to think, hey, the tech industry could actually do this, that to me is a good sign, because the next argument is, not only can we give you the same utility that you just expressed, and that everybody ever who's ever expressed any amount of utility to me, not only can we give it to you the same way, but we can do it with far less risk and cost, and in far smaller packages, and far more efficiently. We don't have to drive your RAM prices up. We don't have to take the entire economy on a wild ride. And we don't have to have entire data centers eating up your water and your energy bills, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's all kinds of things that we don't have to do. And I point to stuff that was happening pretty much before 2015, when we were generating AI systems that had what was called natural language processors, which is the precursor to what we have now as NLPs, the chatbots, right? And these things were applied to very strict, niche, narrow sets of fields, like geospatial data from satellite imaging. And you would just provide that set of data, and then you provide some algorithms for that data, and then you put some natural language processing in front of it so people could talk naturally about that data. That was super limited, super efficient. You could run it on a single server. Everybody could run it. Everyone and their dog could, run 100 versions of this, or whatever you wanted to do with it, and you'd get the same benefits out of it. You just have to constrain it. That's the key thing.
Can you answer something for me? Because
sure.
It feels like I'm on the edge of understanding something because I don't understand the tech, right?
Yeah.
And that is like, one of the things that I hear from pro AI proponents, and again, I am one myself, but that doesn't mean that I don't see all these other issues.
Yeah.
Is, okay, what about how cancer research shows this? They have this. The FDA, for example, just approved, AI that
ELISA
is designed to look at, oh my God, breast cancer tissue. And is able to predict it, better than the human eye or doctors usually can, with a higher success rate. And the same thing, there was this tech that was, utilized by a Japanese company, like in the early 2010s, right? Where they were trying to find an AI that could look at images and then determine what piece of baked good that was.
Yeah.
And that they created a system that looked at that, so that instead of having to have workers memorize the price of 400 different products, it was just an image, and they could very quickly get the price, thus moving the speed at which someone could come in. And then that data was then used, what was developed for that was then used for pharmaceutical companies to more accurately count pills and things like that. And it sounds like all of this precursor technology that we're celebrating has nothing to do with LLMs.
Right.
Right. It sounds like all of this is when you had specific targeted AI that was trained for a specific task.
That's right.
As opposed to trained on the entire internet.
That's right.
That they actually did a really good job at the task.
That's
that
right.
They were trained for. And instead, now what we're doing is we're pumping a bunch of money into these probability machines that are just using the whole internet. And they're using a fuck ton of resources to come up with machines that hack shit and lie and can't do tasks very well.
At worst, or at best, no better than a human, according to your own argument, right? Because humans make mistakes too. It's just that now we've automated the entire thing.
To be fair, right? LLMs are faster.
They're faster, but then comes the next point, which is friction. And it is a well-known, scientifically well-known, psychological and otherwise academic and whatnot factor, positive factor, that friction is often more positive than it is negative. For example, when a child has to draw a picture and they have to work through the different variations of drawing a picture and getting the picture more realistic and looking better, etc., there's friction involved in that. But that friction creates the ability for a child to think properly about what they're trying to represent out of their brain, transmitted through the act of doing it through their hand-eye coordination, and then putting it on paper, and then receiving that visual data back and saying, does this align with what I wanted to draw? There's friction with things like, for example, I've done the math. As far as I know, no one's done the math on this. But if you go look at, there's a GitHub repository that tracks the rankings of, I think it's error rates. I'm pretty sure it's error rates, not hallucination rates. That's different. Errors and hallucinations are two different things. Hallucinations are like when it tries to give you an answer and it just picks something that's close and gives you an answer. Error is like it just got it straight up wrong. And
the way I interact with AI, I get way more hallucinations than I get errors.
Because
the reason is because I'm very specific in the way that I use AI. I'm like, hey, what do you think the answer to this would be, referencing Hans Hermann Hoppe's Democracy, the God That Failed, and argumentation from Mises in, Man, Economy, and State.
Super
and then
specific.
It'll give
yeah.
Well, that's I tend to use AI probably differently than most people do.
Sure,
right?
yeah.
Because I'm looking for specific information. And I get hallucinations all the time.
Yep.
Because it'll give me a quote and I'm like, that's not in that fucking book.
I'm
looking at the PDF right now. And then it's like, oh, I'm sorry, the real quote is this. And I'm like, that's not the fucking quote either, motherfucker. Like, you made that shit up. Where are you even getting this from? And it's like, I'm sorry, here's the real quote. And I'm like, that's not the fucking quote either. Stop trying to give me a quote. Like, just try this again. Let's restart, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't make it not helpful. It only means that if I was retarded enough or untrained enough or potentially was like a generation alpha and grew up using it and didn't learn to think for myself, maybe, right? Which is kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I might take this at face value. It's that I have the capacity to recognize that this AI tool that I'm using is a labor-saving tool.
Yes.
It's not a tool that replaces my thinking. And I think maybe governments and corporations seem to have this belief that it's going to replace thinking.
Correct. Yeah,
when it's just not capable of doing
that.
In fact, it's worse. It's worse.
Worse. Yes, it's worse, and that's been scientifically proven as well. There was a study that showed students who were using AI, ChatGPT specifically, to create I can't remember what it was, essays, I believe, on certain topics. They put an EEG on their brains and they watched their like theta waves and delta waves and stuff like that. And the creative portion of their brain in particular went down into the negative, I believe. And it was temporary. So they couldn't make like a long-term, like, oh, this has like long-term stuff. But they did say that several months afterwards, when they brought the students back in to try and get them to repeat the essay that they generated, did they know anything about it? And then they checked they couldn't. And those particular brain patterns didn't actually get better, at least in the course of a few months, which is not long term, but it's indicative of something. And that's the friction thing, which is when you start removing friction away, you better be really, really careful where you do it. If you're removing friction from somebody who doesn't need to remember 400 prices when they look at an image, that's very, very different than removing friction from somebody who needs to go through the friction of doing academic research. Because that academic research, like if you're a professor, you want your students to learn how to think. That's why you're asking them to write an essay. It's critical for them to go through that. You remove that, and it's like, well, now you are creating a generation of people who can't think because they don't use it.
Here's my question, right? Like, so there's this really wonderful article from the 1850s, maybe it's the 1880s. It depends on how late in his life he wrote it. But Max Stirner, who's like, he's an interesting character, right? He's the father of egoism before Nietzsche and before Ayn Rand. Creates kind of like ethical egoism. And he's kind of a crazy commie, everything for me, pure selfishness, but also no morality is entered into it. It's a psych, right? But he wrote this wonderful article called The False Principle of Our Education. And he wrote in the 1800s about how the kind of the creation of what we might now call the Prussian education model right? Of all of these, like, we're going to teach you concepts in rote memorization. And the
Right.
difference between that level of education versus what the wealthy receive, the high class received
Yes.
an education in philosophy that taught them how to think.
How to
And
think.
so I kind of see parallels here, but also I wonder if that is also a usage problem, right? And what I mean by that is what we have seen is like your typical college grad, right? I don't know how to put this in a nice way other than to just say they're all retarded. Like I can find your average person if they have an engineering degree, maybe not, right? If they have certain STEM degrees, maybe not. But your typical I just got a bachelor's degree person today, graduating in 2025. And even like 5 or 6 years ago, they have no concept of how to think.
Yeah.
And it's like how much of that is the introduction of AI and the taking away of scaffolding, which is kind of the friction you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Vygotsky in Russia called it scaffolding, right?
Yeah.
Which is like, or you know, you might have heard the term the zone of proximal development,
Right.
right? Which is also kind of what you're talking about, where it's like there's just enough friction to where you can do it without
Yes.
being frustrated and
That's
failing,
right.
right? Like that would be the quote unquote zone of proximal development,
Yeah.
right? How much of that is supplanting the process and the scaffolding of thinking, but also how much of that is the change in the process of thinking versus the process of rote memorization for standardized tests or for pushing people through an education model that no longer teaches anybody how to think
Right.
regardless of the usage of AI. So it's like if the task is like if the standards are around rote memorization, right? Then it's like I don't know that it's that helpful or unhelpful to replace that with AI because I don't think that much of the education process that or much of the learning process that AI is supplanting is even valuable to be supplanted or not supplanted, right?
Right.
I wonder if AI is just streamlining a process that was never educating people to begin with. And that's kind of like kind of where I'm at. Like I do think maybe it's a step farther down a direction that's already bad. So like I kind of agree with you, right? But also at the same time, so much of our education system is completely poisoned and destroyed by this concept of like meeting a standard and standardized testing and learn
Sure.
these 20 facts and things like that. That it's like, well, AI is kind of great at that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like if you're going to go out into the world and you need like a quick, like, what's the top 10 this according to Google, right?
Mm.
Like, does it matter if you Google it or if you ask an LLM? The LLM's just going to be fucking quicker, right? And like, that's probably a good thing. The real problem is how do we teach people how to think? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's something that our education system in the last few decades has failed so miserably that maybe you could say in a more sinister negative way it's being supplanted by AI, but also I could say like I don't know to what degree that's AI's fault or LLM's fault. So or is it like the way that we teach is so fucked that like AI is just streamlining that fucked process?
Yeah, I would say it's worse. I not only do I agree with you, I'm a high school dropout. I'm self-taught. I had to move away from home when I was 17, so I never finished high school. I just did what I had to do, construction, programming. So, and I agree that like a lot of the education that I see other people that did way more education than me, it's like what the heck? What the hell did you learn? My point is actually that it's worse than this. If it's
Mm-hmm.
true in education, then it's also true in a general sense. That's my argument. And
Mm-hmm.
so it ties into something you brought up, like the FDA using it for breast cancer detection, etc., which I've gone over some studies like that. The problem here is if so first of all, I agree. It's a wash with the education system. If you're going to choose between education system or AI, it's like, yeah, take your pick because you're probably going to end up in the same place. AI might make it a little bit worse. But then my argument would be, why would you want to accelerate that with AI? With AI being introduced into the education system anyways, but that's a whole different thing. We can put that
Right.
aside and jump to the more general, which is, well, it's true down here. Is it also true everywhere else? And my argument is that it is. For example, doctors recently who have been using these systems to do I think it was oncological, or I can't remember the exact term, but it was some kind of oncology surgery maybe. They were saying that they loved how AI was an additive supportive structure to their systems. But after 3 to 6 months of usage, they were starting to forget critical parts of their work. And that's not the only industry that's behaved that way. And it goes back to this EEG study of you start removing people's friction, you remove their ability to think creatively, etc. And so there's now a general case where programmers say that all the time. I see it on my feeds, obviously, because I'm biased about programmers because I'm one myself. And I see it all the time. When Claude went down the other day, people are like, I don't know what to do because I don't know how to code anymore. Like, I've forgotten how to code. Right. So what happens when this thing goes down? Doctors are doing this, lawyers are doing this, executives are doing, et cetera, et cetera. You can go down the list of people who are losing their ability to think. There's a general problem. Why on earth would we want to take what's happening in the education system and put it in the palm of everyone's hands and say, have at it infinitely in your home so that you can basically destroy a lot of core capabilities? And so again, it goes to you better be really careful about what you're automating. It's not that automating something away is in and of itself bad, is what is it that you're automating? And that's not to speak of what I was talking about before, which is the error rates. So if you look at the highest performing LLM out there, with its error rate, I believe it's 0.07%. And then you take a look at what people want to, what certain companies like Tesla and others want to put these things in your car. They want to put actual LLMs in your car. And you then take the number of deaths per year because of car accidents, which is something like 0.00025 or something like that. There's a few zeros behind it. And you apply the number of calculations that need to be done in a 10-minute drive, a few city blocks, and then you apply the 0.07% error rate and you do some back of the napkin math. Well, essentially what you're doing is you're exponentially increasing a 10-minute drive, your risk factor of literally dying in that 10-minute drive, by an insane amount. So again,
I don't buy that. I don't buy that.
I did back of the napkin math. Okay. So you got to,
it's like, there's too many factors that can't be, there's too many variables that can't be controlled there. Right. Like an error can be devastating or an error can be, minute, right? Like there's if you I mean, like, it would be, it's something worth studying for sure.
right.
It's something worth doing a pilot program on and then seeing statistically, like, when you put something, because I mean, like, this is the problem with psychology and sociology research too, which is like, it's not hard science, right? Doing something like that is like, there's so many unknown variables that it's actually difficult to know, like, what's going on. And then, like, the actual research would be like completely unethical, like looking at children, right? Like looking at children and like being like, well, we took 12 children in a lab and like and for 10 years we never let them go outside.
That's right.
And we only trained them on AI model. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, it sounds bad. You make it sound bad. It's certainly a possibility. I don't disagree with you that it could be worse than driving. My thing is, like, I'm with you that we ought advocate, malinvestment in the market, right?
Right.
Like, where money is being spent that is poor. And from my perspective as an ANCAP, I'm like, well, just keep the fucking government out of it and let people fucking test this out. And if Tesla makes a new model car that causes a bunch of accidents, well, then bye $1 trillion, right? Like, let's sue you all for fucking fraud. If you lied about the safety, let's sue you for the damages. Let's fucking completely destroy your company because you took a risk in the market, right? Like what I'm far more worried about, I think, at least in this, is I'm far more worried about the government going, oh, but Tesla's too big to fail. Right. Like, that's the shit that really fucking, because I think that fuels so much of this malinvestment. Is I think there's a lot of, like, when I look at again, I'm probably going to look at the economic perspective a little bit more than you, because that's the domain that I know better.
Yeah.
It's like, there's a lot of funding. Like, I mean, ChatGPT is like overwhelmingly government funded and or funded through NGOs that are government funded or funded through, like, they have massive amounts of our tax dollars are going into this thing. And it seems, what's really interesting to me about the way that AI is funded is that almost all of AI, again, LLMs mostly right here, they seem to be front loaded. There's no other product. Like there's this assumption in the market that like AI is good, therefore you can have no product and no completed product and no like proof that your product is like profitable in any domain, and we'll just pump the fuck out of it.
Yeah.
And like, and like that's, that's, I mean, like I've never seen anything be more of a recipe for a disaster economically than just putting trillions of dollars into a product like that's like has like a small proof of concept. Like what? Like that's crazy. So like I share some of these concerns in that domain. In terms of like talking about, well, why would it be good or bad, putting it into our hands? And like, man, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I'm very 50-50
Look at it
on
from
this
my
because like
worldview.
from me perspective, it's very functional.
No,
if
I
used
get it.
properly.
But if
And
you
it's like, yeah.
if you have the knowledge though, look at it from my perspective. If you have the knowledge that we can give you the same thing, but we can do it better with less risks and with less economic impact and so on and so forth, then to me it sounds insane. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I mean like that makes perfect sense, right? Like I think there's maybe it's a government thing, maybe it's a corporate thing, maybe it's part of this whole cult thing, right? But it seems to be that there is this like upper echelon of powerful individuals that have decided that LLMs are the means by which there is an inevitable breakthrough in AGI.
Yes.
And it seems like if you attack that at all, they're like, so you want China to win?
Yeah,
You
that's
want
right.
China
That's
to
right.
have the techno bots?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, and this is what I said kind of in the beginning. It's like my philosophy is I don't think AGI is possible in any program that maintains contradictions are true. I do not think it is possible for AGI to actually work, if possible at all, right? Like, because I know this gets into like the deep kind of like
very
science fiction world.
philosophical. Yeah,
But
yeah.
if we grant that AGI is possible, I don't see how AGI is possible in any type of machine. Let's assume it's embodied, right? Because
Yeah.
that may be necessary for AGI,
Mhm.
right? But if it's an embodied machine that believes that A can equal not A, then it has no basis for rational thought.
Yeah.
And when I look at LLMs, what I see are like these machines that are just, there is no rational thought there.
It's non-existent.
And they go, well, it'll develop rational thought. And I'm like, well, no, it seems to be that it's just developing what appears to be rational thought,
right?
Because it's engaged in probabilistic thinking,
right?
And it's trained to get to an answer in the quickest way possible. And sometimes the quickest way possible is to like pay a guy on Fiverr and tell him you're blind so that you can get past like the human test thing.
Yeah.
But that's not it thinking. It's not like an evil, self-aware fucking thing being like, ah, ha, ha, ha. Like that's, so I don't know. Like I feel like we're probably not actually that far off in our thought process, despite the fact that I'm super pro AI and you're super anti AI.
I know. We're far more aligned. And I think a part of the problem that I think a lot of people don't seem to understand about the way these things work is that, okay, well, here's an example, right? So let's look at it from a corporate, like economic perspective. Okay. You're getting some functionality out of it, right? And so you can put some hours behind it. Like you mentioned, maybe a few thousand hours. Let's say that you could somehow magic button objectively track those number of hours, know the difference between using AI and not using AI. And so we just grant the whole thing to you. Yes, you're saving however many hours. Okay. But then you bring up something else, which is those are hours that I save. Unfortunately, AI doesn't save those hours for you, not in the way that you think, because AI is not scrubbing through all the data that it's been given. The data sets that we have right now go all the way back from 2008. Anything on the internet from 2008 onward is part of the data set, and it's not enough. Now they're synthesizing even more data out of that. So you have to consider this. When you open up that chat bot and you go, let me look up this Turner guy, from the late 1800s, and tell me the quote. You're thinking, oh, it's going to know the corpus of data that it has access to. No,
Mhm.
it does not. And not only does it not know, it actually physically cannot know. We have a hardware limitation where if even one person was to ask it to look through all its corpus of data to find the thing you're looking for, we don't have enough power to run that for one single prompt in a given year, let alone the hundreds of millions of people who are using it all the time on a daily basis. So ultimately, what you're having to do is what, say, a parent has to do with a child. Mom, dad, where do babies come from? You're not going to sit down and go through the entire academic process of how babies are made, right? You're going to kind of break it down depending on the child and their ability to
I
understand
think you
things.
underestimate the autism of a libertarian.
Maybe
Right.
if you're super
Maybe
autist. Yeah, maybe.
I mean?
Yeah, it could be. There are exceptions, right?
I went to the Smithsonian the other day with my toddlers.
Well,
And
there you go. There you go.
People were talking shit on the fact that they had a fossilized tree. And so I
Oh,
intentionally gave like a whole 5-minute speech to my kid that I knew that they wouldn't fully grasp, just to shit talk openly the other people that were shitting on this tree fossil. But I get what you're saying. Yeah. Like you're saying, it's I'm not going through everything I learned in anatomy, right? Like what I'm doing is going, okay, they have a question. I need to answer this question with relevant data.
Right.
Okay, what are some responses that may that may satisfy the question that the child is going through. Here's an answer that is limited, that is not entirely accurate, but is good enough to satisfy the query that I've been given by the child. And then maybe at a later date we'll go into more detail, but I'm not going to go into the gory details with my toddler of like sex and STDs and being like, and then the sperm enters the the zygote, you know what I mean, and then the zygote goes through a process of meiosis, and we're not giving you a true answer. We're attempting to satisfy the query with the most relevant, easily accessible kind of thing.
That's it. So if you look at that economically now, right? So you take that into account, and you're an executive and you're like, well, we have this AI thing, and then you think exactly what you stated. I'm not saying that you're thinking that, but like it's something you said, right? Which is it'll save me from looking through these thousands of hours, which there's an implication there that it also has looked through these thousands of hours for you. Unfortunately, it's just not true. It's looked through a very limited set of data and then parsed out certain keywords and then just spatialize them. And that's it. So if I'm an executive and that's who I'm hiring, put that into a human perspective, remove the AI, take the same kind of application of what's happening.
So let me put it in a real world scenario, right? I'm going to debate this guy, person X, right? And I say like, hey, I'm trying to get a better understanding of their politics.
Yeah.
Go through their YouTube videos and like give me a basic overview of their political stances.
Yeah.
And I'm working under the false presumption that it's going through all of their YouTube videos and then giving like its best probabilistic understanding of their political prescriptions. But what really it's doing is it's attempting to satisfy my query and going through a very limited amount of information and then probabilistically generating from the limited information that it gained what it wants. And then it probably works. It's fairly accurate, but it's not really. In my mind, I'm thinking I just saved 1,000 hours, when in reality, if I would have just gone to their YouTube videos and watched the first 10 minutes of one video and then watched 5 minutes of another video, I probably would have reached a similar conclusion.
And you'd have saved money and you'd have saved time going through the friction of having to coordinate.
I would have saved money, but I'm
sure. And you would have exercised your brain. You would have used your own thinking faculties, et cetera, et cetera. There's a bunch of stuff. There's also one other thing that no one's talking about. No one's talking about it. I think I'm the only person who's focused in on this and done the research on it.
So did you ask AI if other people are talking about it?
I didn't. I didn't. So okay, so you got me there, right? Damn it! I should have done that. I should know better.
It might have found it too, hilariously enough.
Maybe, yeah, maybe I should do that after. But okay, so as far as I know, all right, geez, man, way to hold me to the fire. Okay, so as far as I know, no one's talked about this. When it
Mhm,
comes to manufacturing, like Nvidia, for example. So if you look at the way that Nvidia manufactures their hardware,
mhm,
even today with RAM, etc., hard drives, all the stuff, there's manufacturing defects that often go unnoticed. So a way to tell that, let's say a CPU is malfunctioning is by giving it a small set of math problems and then making sure that it gives you the right answers. I'm hand waving a
right.
bit away. But even then, you sometimes get bad hardware. It just happens. You blue screen of death on Windows, yada yada. It's a fact of life. And there's floating
Yeah, I mean,
point.
and like you can just know this, right? If you're if you're just like a casual buyer of
Yeah,
GPUs, there's a
it's
reason. There's a reason that there's all these different SKUs that come out.
yes, yeah.
And like what and you're like, why would Nvidia, like, why is a 5080 just a 5090 with like some of the CUDA cores burned? And it's
That's
like,
that's it.
because it's a bad 5090
'Cause that's
that
it.
like
That's
where,
right.
and then they burned off some of the CUDA
Right.
cores and then sold you a 5080 because it fixed the problem, and they
Right.
weren't going to throw that away. It would be
Right.
stupid to throw that away, but sometimes they can fix a
That's
5090,
right. That's right.
right, by like
Yeah.
turning it into a 5080 super or some shit
Yes.
later.
Yeah. But those are the ones you know about, though. You're 100% right, but those are the big
Right.
ones. It goes down to there is still a known problem in hardware manufacturing with a lot of things related to computers that
Mhm.
has precision errors, where
Mhm.
sometimes in the actual manual process of manufacturing, you get a precision error, and then it
Mhm.
causes something to malfunction in a way that you couldn't have predicted or tested for at all. And those things go uncaught. So Google did studies on this.
Mhm.
Every 2 weeks or so, they found, I think it was several hundred or several thousands of these kinds of errors in all of their AI hardware, and they often have to do retraining and even sometimes replacing their hardware because
Mhm.
they're catching them. Those are the ones they catch, and they everyone fully admits you can't catch them all. So you actually
Right.
have no clue on top of everything else. So again, from an economic factor, not only do you have the fact that this a human being can't onload all the information in the world since 2008 on the internet, neither can an LLM, but you also have the unknown problem, which is you know that this thing is going to fail in ways you can't even detect. And that's the same thing with LLMs, the same
Well,
way
it's
it
the
could
same
be
thing
with
with
human.
humans.
Right.
Why is I
Except
why is that
because now
especially bad
you're
with LLMs?
automating it. So imagine you've taken a human and they don't need to
Mhm.
go to the bathroom or worry about their kids or anything like that. There's no friction. As soon as look, if you have a problem and something
Mhm.
happens and you're like, oh, there's a problem, and this human caused this problem, and maybe you got to fire the human, but at the very least, that problem isn't going, or sorry, that human isn't going to cause that problem over and over and over again, repeatedly, way faster than any human could in the course of an hour. So that friction comes in because now you have a little bit of wiggle room to go fix the problem and not spend way more money than you should have spent on that problem. So if you're going to make the argument that these things are basically no better than a human being at best, why are we spending this much money on them when we could get a human to do it and get the benefit of having the friction of realizing a problem and not letting it escalate and permutate and all of that stuff and
Right, but
spend way more money on it?
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but what you're saying doesn't, it doesn't, there's no inductive or deductive argument that, like, it seems like you're making an inductive argument, right? In the sense that, okay, under both human error and under both AI error, there are unknown variables that cause errors of some sort, right? Whether it be, however we want to define error. We'll assume error just means an unintended result,
Yeah,
right? Like regardless of whether or not it's hardware or
sure.
software or in the
Yeah.
code
Came
or
out wrong somehow.
whatever, right? Like not what was intended, right? Um, that doesn't necessitate, like that only matters insofar as we can look at like the cost benefit analysis of one versus the other. And that only matters if we assume that we don't get better at creating these LLMs or reducing their errors. Like the crucial thing that's missing here is proof that the LLM models that we use are incapable of having less errors over time, or like the proof that like Moore's law is dead, right?
Okay,
Like
there is
if
proof.
Moore's law is not dead, right, for whatever reason, or at the very least, you know what I mean, like not, like not, even if it's an asymptote, not still improving, right? Then it doesn't matter if we replace a human with this in that domain. Like I'm not
Fair.
hearing anything convincing in
No,
that
that's
domain.
fair.
Like I'm hearing and agreeing that these things create
Have
errors.
a problem.
They
Yes.
have a problem, right? But
Right.
but that doesn't prove to me in any way that like continued investment done correctly, right? Like not malinvestment would not over time create a system where it is performing at a higher level of accuracy than would a human for lower cost.
Right. Okay. So you would I'm sure you would agree that if you applied that argument to a human being, you would get some utility out of training a human being to reduce their error rates. Let's say we put that. If you put the right investment, it's not a guarantee. Obviously, humans are humans, but
Right.
if you applied it correctly, you're likely to have a human being learn and understand. Hey, you made a mistake, here's how to correct the mistake, and then you reduce it or eliminate the mistake entirely. So if you put that kind of investment in to a human being, it's pretty reasonable that you're going to get something out of that. When it comes to
I don't
LLM,
know.
it's
Sure.
not a
We'll say
hundred
sure.
percent. It's not a
Yeah,
hundred
sure.
percent, right? But there's
Yeah.
some like if applied correctly.
With enough means testing, you will eventually be able to train people to be more accurate than without whatever
Right.
training you receive. Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So okay. So if you take that now and you go to the very fair argument you're making, which is what if we can continue to improve these things? So there is some amount of improvement that we can make. But my argument
Hmm.
is that the science shows and the programming shows that we've basically hit the wall. And I think we hit the wall last year, probably middle of last year. And the reason why is because if you
Hmm.
look at any scientific study, any on what's called fine tuning, which is what happens when errors are detected, and then they go in and they very specifically try and fine tune the LLM to solve for the error. Every single study that I've read, and I personally I've read probably more than 30 on stream. I've read probably more than 10, and every single one says that there are catastrophic consequences that you can never ever expect because it's part of the ontological state of these things. You're playing whack-a-mole. As an
Hmm.
example, there was a group of programmers. They wanted to see if they could get an LLM to produce more secure code and less secure code. And they're sitting around trying to get this thing to work. And then one of the programmers got bored and they're like, hey, I have an LLM in front of me. Why don't I just ask it like a general question? I'm bored today. What should I do? And the LLM came back and said, maybe you should rummage around your cabinets and find expired pharmaceuticals so you can have a fun day, which goes against its safety violations, which was broken as a result of the fine tuning. So there's literally no evidence to suggest that tuning these things to make them better causes fewer problems. In fact, it almost always certainly causes more. And it is widely known, and now if you want to go with the consensus argument, it's widely accepted that hallucinations at the very least are an ontological part of its being, and they can never ever ever be removed from large language models, not ever.
Well, they
So
can't be removed from humans either.
no, they can't. But you can direct a human and narrow down their scope and get far more utility out of a human being when you take the holistic picture again in mind.
Hmm.
A human being is going to learn better and faster. Generally, human beings are more creative with problem solving versus AI. Sometimes up to 450 times less energy usage. Scientifically compared, the amount of
Hmm.
money you're going to put into them is going to be less overall. The amount of
Hmm.
data information you're collecting that you're putting in the hands of people like Peter Thiel and Palantir, none. Like when you look at the holistic picture of putting this money into a human being and then putting it into an AI, most things being equal, if you want to make the best case arguments right now, it's way better to put it into a human being economically stating as a general thing, right?
So the argument really hinges upon this, right? I think this is probably the most important thing here, right? Which is as far as at least LLMs are concerned, your argument is that it is generally perceived by most of the people that know what the fuck they're doing and researching this. Not to make an appeal to authority, right? But at a certain point, you have to be like, okay, these people all kind of agree, and they all seem to
Yeah.
understand what they're talking about here, right? That there is a limit to how much you can fine tune LLMs to be accurate
Yeah.
in their errors, because when you fine tune one aspect of the program, what you end up with is all of these unintended consequences, because you're not dealing with AGI. You're not dealing with an intelligence that is capable
Right.
of taking general knowledge from one domain and applying it to
That's
others.
right.
Rather, you're changing something about the way it, for lack of a better word, perceives data.
Yeah.
And that when you kind of like when you tune one, you end up with some other unintended consequence elsewhere, and that we at the very least currently lack the technological capacity or
That's right.
knowledge to be able to get it to a position where those error rates aren't like are in a domain where the juice is worth the squeeze,
That's
where
right.
where financially speaking it's more valuable than humans.
And I have further proof. I'm glad you said that. And I have further proof from the economic perspective.
Mm-hmm.
In the tech industry, it is widely known from in terms of kind of like I guess inside baseball, when a tech company or a tech sector in a particular sector focuses on scaling, they've lost the ability to increase performance or quality or better outputs. Scaling means that you can no longer improve the core product. That's what it means. And what are all the AI companies doing in the last year? They've all focused on scaling, and they've all said it publicly, especially NVIDIA. And I believe Sam Altman said the same thing, that the future of AI is now in scaling. That's why they're building out more data centers, building more GPUs, etc. the
Mm-hmm.
the ball has dropped. They've kind of said it publicly, but you don't really know that unless you've been in the history where this has happened since since I've been in the tech industry. Anytime a company says we have a great new thing and then they start scaling it, well, now you're not solving the problem anymore, or you're not solving the scope of it. Now you're just taking whatever it is, you've reached the end, and now you're just just creating it in mass, right? And that's typically your signal, inside baseball signal, that
Mm-hmm.
we don't have anywhere else to go with this. That's it. So we'll just scale it up, data synthesization, all of that. So the actual people behind this and where they're putting their money into,
Right, like,
again,
give me a second, because
yeah,
I'm just thinking, if you could be so graceful. I'm just trying to, I'm recalibrating my like all of the knowledge that I have. So give me just
no
a second.
problem.
So I'm thinking about it from the perspective of like medicine, right? One of the
Yeah.
things that I thought was very weird to me, right, was this constant demand from, Peter Thiel was one of them, obviously, but there was a lot of other individuals, especially in Europe,
Mhm.
right, that were like, okay, well, the way that we're going to solve all this is we need everyone's medical data. We need
Yeah.
everyone's medical data, and we
Yeah.
need all the medical. And like that always just seems so weird to me. I was like, okay, if your product is getting better, why couldn't you just deal with my medical data in the moment, right? Like, why couldn't I just go? I go to the doctor, and then he goes, okay, I'm going to plug in your chart to this thing we have, and then this thing is going to spit out an ever increasingly more accurate determination of what might be your health problems. Why do I need more? Why do I need a system that utilizes the entire NHS in the UK, for example, if if we're improving upon the product to such a degree that it's getting better and better? Like you shouldn't you just have access to research on like what things are, and like
Yeah.
medical text information and the current research? Like, why do you need all of that? And I
Yeah.
guess your argument is, well, let's just take for granted that the product isn't getting any better. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have everyone's medical data. And then once we have everyone's medical data, we can like put an app on your phone that does the same thing than if you would have gone to the doctor and they would have given you this information. But now you got a phone app that tells you it's, did you know that like your family history says you're at risk of diabetes,
Yeah.
and your last blood chart said this, and therefore, it's important for you to go back to the doctor so that we can, increase our profit revenue by convincing more people to go to the doctor, so we can convince the UK government to give us more funding because we have a higher medical need because more people are going to the doctor. And
Yeah.
lo and behold, we found more people with diabetes. And it's not because the product got better. It's because you force the product upon more people.
Yep.
And the product was doing the same thing it would have done in the doctor's office. They've just scaled it to the point where now they can force or, suggest more people go to the doctor. Therefore, they catch more people with diabetes. Therefore, they can go proof of concept. AI caught all these people with diabetes, but the product itself hasn't gotten better.
That's right.
What has gotten better is the scalability, which we could say maybe there's some value in that, right? Like the scalability has value, if the product has value.
Yeah.
But if the product isn't getting any better and it requires a fuck ton of power and a fuck ton of, and it's going to make my fucking, my buddies, can't build his new computer because his RAM costs $300, then it's like there's other elements of the market that are being affected. And so we're not actually reducing price. We're not actually increasing productivity.
You're just shoveling,
you're shifting productivity somewhere else.
That's right. Yeah. So if you
look, you black pilling piece of shit. I'm kind of seeing your argument, right?
Look.
I'm not anti-AI. You're never going to make me anti-AI.
No,
but you are kind of selling very effectively.
I'll go even further.
The concept that like the investment into LLMs is just a really bad investment and a bad way of getting towards that presumed utopia everyone's selling, and that really you're just proving more that like all of the money in this is dumb money.
Yep, that's honestly all it is. So I'll go more economic stuff. Okay, let's go deeper into it. Meta.
Let it be known when people watch this video and they say that I'm stubborn and I refuse to change my opinion on anything. That like, no, I mean, like you're making a very good argument.
Or let it be known that I'm a great argument maker, perhaps. It could be, or in reality, it's probably a little bit of both, because I'm honestly not the best at representing my worldview.
No, I'm like, no offense, I'm like 10 times better than you at that.
No, I believe. I just
crush debates, right? But I'm open-minded, and you're making a very good case.
I believe you 100%. I have a very narrow niche at the things. Anyways, okay. So, Meta, Grok, ChatGPT had exposures of what was supposed to be private AI conversations that went public. They weren't so private. This happens all the time with cybersecurity, blah, blah, blah. If you look at some of the conversations people have, for like I said at the outset, people talk about their mental state. They self-delete. They talk about having affairs. They talk about financial stuff, all kinds of stuff. All that stuff is stored and saved. And who do you think has access to that? And one of the psychological factors that goes into this is the Turing test, or what was done in the MIT in the 60s, I believe, with Eliza, where the chatbot Eliza, and this is 60s tech, was studied to have procured information from human beings who would tell this 60s chatbot things they wouldn't tell another human being ever. You have that, so now you have a bunch of data that these people have access to, and you can come up with all kinds of ways that they can use that politically, medical, etc. OpenAI has deals with Visa. They're going to automate your purchasing now. You just tell it kind of what you want to purchase throughout the year. It'll automate the purchasing. Well, guess what now? Now Visa and OpenAI can go over to, I don't know, Walmart and say, hey, maybe we'll make it so that, a certain percentage of people purchase more products from Walmart. Nobody will know because the AI takes care of it. And you see the things that these people are lining up in terms of partnership agreements, which leads to the capital expenditures, public reporting. NVIDIA makes, I believe, over a third of their yearly income from 5 undisclosed recipients. And we're talking about billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars. That's almost unheard of. The amount of money that is being shifted between several companies at the top, mostly Microsoft as the kind of an outlier where they're being used as a hardware storage area. But then NVIDIA gives Microsoft hardware, and then Microsoft offers cloud services. Then OpenAI rents from Microsoft. Microsoft, then Nvidia pumps investment money into OpenAI, but OpenAI needs some of the Nvidia hardware, and it goes back to Nvidia. If you look at all the circling of the money, with all that, it
This part I'm
all
aware
goes
of.
through Nvidia. Yeah. So all the economic factors there are all pointing very, very blatantly in your face. The Michael Burry thing, the housing bigger than the housing crisis, all of that stuff. They're all pointing to this kind of money. And I think what few people understand is how aware venture capitalists in the tech industry are aware of this. I read a report that was done worldwide. It was 300 or 500 CISOs, essentially venture capitalists. It was a quarterly report at the end of 2024, and it very clearly stated what I said at the outset. Over 90% of tech investment in 2024 was anything to do with AI, which is an unheard of number in terms of tech investment, and a huge majority of that was OpenAI. So yeah, they're just extracting as much money as they can. And then OpenAI is now doing a few other things, which are kind of tells, economic tells. When tech companies historically know that they
I don't know
might
what
get,
you're talking about. OpenAI is a non-profit business.
it's a nonprofit. Of course it is. Yes. Yeah. We all know that. Yeah. One of the things that tech companies have done historically, like in the 2000s, for example, with Meta, the FTC lawsuit against Meta exposed this with their public disclosures of exhibit information. When they think that there's a risk that they're going to lose out at the game that they're primarily playing, they diversify their portfolio. OpenAI wanted to buy Google Chrome. So did Anthropic, I believe, etc. Hang on a second here. You're telling me you have some of the most advanced AI systems and you can't just vibe code your way to a Chrome competitor, to a browser competitor? No, you can't. And that's why you're diversifying. Because if the rug gets pulled out from under you, you have a bunch of other stuff underneath that you can lay back on.
There's like a billion chromiums anyways. Like I use Brave,
yes.
right? You know what I mean? Like you know, like you couldn't create your own Brave.
Yeah.
You don't even need to purchase Chrome. Unless you want to purchase something that has actual value.
That's right. It's a diversification of assets in order to save yourself from an impending writing on the wall. That's why they kind of brought up, the CFO brought up the notion of what you talked about, which is, we might need the government, we might need Trump to invest.
Well, so that's kind of where, my libertarianism, warning flags start ringing, right? Because Michael Burry has predicted, I think it was like, what was it? There's this like running joke. Michael Burry has predicted 86 of the last one bubbles, right?
Yes,
and it's
true.
like, right. And it's like, and what's because Michael Burry is, really autistic, and he is a value investor.
Yeah.
And a value investor is something that was super, super, super useful in up until the 1990s, 2000s.
Yes.
Right. And so for people that are unaware, a value investor is essentially someone that comes in and they evaluate the value of a business, and then they evaluate what the stated stock price is. Mm-hmm. And if they're evaluating the business lower than the stock price, right, then they'll short it. And if they evaluate the business higher than the stock price, then they'll buy it. Mm-hmm. That's what they teach you in school stocks actually are, right? And under a completely free market, that's what stocks would be.
Yeah.
But there's a problem, and the problem is socialism. We can, if in a larger degree, right? Which is, if the government steps in, then all of a sudden it's not actually the value of the product; it's the value of the product plus the value of the connections that these corporations have with the state or with, international economic entities like the World Economic Forum or the IMF or et cetera. And so, Michael Burry as a value investor has shorted Nvidia and shorted Palantir. We don't know how much he paid for it, but we also don't know what other shorts he has. We just have like some of his filings, right? So we know that he put $1 million put on Nvidia and a $5 million put on Palantir.
Yeah.
The thing is that like he's like I think he's absolutely right. Like I think this whole conversation is just like kind of elucidating exactly how right he is, that there's all this malinvestment in AI. But as you pointed out, none of that matters if this becomes backed by the state.
Yep.
right? If Palantir says we need all of your medical data, we
Yep.
need your driver data, we're going to make government more efficient.
And now
You
you're
know,
getting it.
if
Yep.
right, if Amazon Cloud Services says we need to have cloud services for the CIA, so we're going to have a $200 million contract that was already done.
Yeah.
Right, like then the enmeshment means that you've created a business that's quote unquote too big to fail.
That's right.
Not even looking at the economic aspect where, the 2009 financial collapse, they were too big to fail because we were worried that the stock market would crash.
Yeah.
But we're also talking about the enmeshment with the state. And so, yeah, I can totally buy that LLMs have kind of like reached their peak in functionality. I disagree maybe to a certain degree that they're like it seems to be that you're really selling the idea that they're completely useless. I think they have use cases. I think they're
They
a
do.
tool.
They
Right?
do.
Like
Yes.
it reminds me very much of Plato's writings, presumably of Socrates. And Socrates made the argument that writing was bad.
Right.
He made the argument that you ought not write because
Then you'll
if you
never
had the
remember.
capacity to find the information, then you won't be encouraged to know the information.
Yes.
I think history has proven that writing was actually probably a pretty fucking cool thing.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
Worked out well.
maybe writing shit down. Actually, Socrates was dead fucking wrong on this.
Right.
But he might not be wrong about the capacity of man's brain and how writing meant that there was less stored thought available in the brain at the time, and that maybe it did indeed to some degree decrease our capacity to learn, and yet it also increased our capacity to learn.
Yes, here's the
And
difference.
so okay, go ahead.
Exactly to this point. This is the difference between why Plato was wrong about writing and why I don't think I'm as wrong about AI. To be clear, AI has utilities. It does. And again, I just want to be clear. You can still get those utilities. I'm glad people are seeing it. I'm glad people are seeing what the tech industry can do, but we can do it better. We can do it way better than this. We don't have to be taking these risks. It's insane. If this was the only way, I might be singing a different tune. But the difference between writing and AI, when you write something, you don't have a source of information usually. Usually what you're doing is you're taking something that you've, say, experienced in life, you've heard, whatever it is, and then you're through the course of friction, which again has been studied, the concept of actually writing the words down, having to think about what it is, how to translate that through your hand, putting it on paper, does this look right, etc. That is a far different process that has proven to be very useful than I'm going to ask a question and receive an answer, and that's it. These two things aren't in the same world.
For sure. I don't necessarily disagree. I just said that there was a certain level of similarity there in terms of the sentiment of like
he was
right. He was right to believe that placing information into text and then being comfortable with the fact that the information was available
was
to
there.
you,
Yeah.
and as opposed to maintaining all of that information in your mind did indeed lead to, maybe some decreased rational thought or thinking, but also wrong because the collective process of humanity writing meant that there's all of this information available for me to gain.
Right.
And so
but also to create, because the process of writing allows you to
process.
Yeah,
it's a
that's
collaborative
right.
process when you write and someone else reads what you write.
But who are you collaborating with in an LLM chatbot?
Well, to a certain extent, you're kind of collaborating with the people that have written things.
If it gets
you're
it
just
right,
doing it through a filter,
right?
A filter that sometimes makes mistakes,
right? Yeah. So,
right, but I mean, look, like LLMs certainly have a usage, right? Like I can't tell you how many times I've been in and wondered about something, right, and then just been like, oh. Like for example, I have an autoimmune disease, and so I have an incredibly limited diet. I can't have rice. I can't have alliums, which includes garlic, shallots, onions, chives, green onions. I can't have any of those things. I can't have rice. I can't have gluten. I can't have spinach, and I can't have something in fucking Mountain Dew, but I haven't figured out what it is. And then I also can't have Tajin. Okay, now Tajin doesn't have any of the things I mentioned, right? And then but I realized I had a reaction to Tajin. I was like, what the fuck? So then I asked Grok, I was like, dude, I'm getting sick from Tajin. Can you figure out what this is? And then immediately it was like, this calcium bicarbonate sourced from Tajin is actually using the shell of hardened rice to source this material.
There's your
And
connection.
since you mentioned that you're allergic, or not allergic, but that you have a reaction to rice,
Yeah.
that's what's doing it.
Right.
Like without that, I definitely would have had to have put in a lot of research and time. Right. So it
Absolutely.
certainly gave me information quickly that
Yes.
helped improve my life considerably, because
Yes.
I didn't have to go to the doctor's office to figure that out. Right.
Right.
So like the LLM certainly has uses.
It does.
And it's like, it's not this like overall damaging thing by the nature of its existence.
Right.
What we're talking about really is the way that we fund it, how much power we give the people that control it, and how we use it. Right. And so it's like, I almost feel like we ought to treat LLMs like we treat junk food. Right. Like junk food taken all the time is going to kill you. You have to learn to limit and regulate the way in which you intake junk food and how often you use it. But that doesn't mean the occasional junk food is going to fucking kill you. In
Right.
fact, it might make your day better.
Right.
It might be useful in some degree. And so, yeah, I'm still pro AI. I might even still be pro LLM. But I totally agree that there's a lot of things that are problematic that I haven't considered from your vantage point.
No, I understand.
Especially in the way, in its limitations.
Yeah, the limitations are, that's right. That's the real problem here. And well, okay, there's really two problems. So for all its utility, there's definitely like 100% proof that it also has like huge downsides. So I think OpenAI themselves reported that there's, I can't remember what the numbers were, 250,000 or 500,000 people a week or something who talk about this stuff and with like mental illness, like they have some kind of mental illness, and they collaborate.
That depends on what time of year it is. One of the funniest graphs you can ever see is you can see when kids are out of school,
and then
ChatGPT's numbers go way down. And it's like there's no fucking argument that like a majority of the usage of ChatGPT right now is for kids to do their homework and not actually educate themselves.
Yeah. Okay. Now,
but on the mental health kick,
it's one element, right? There's another element too, which is there was this study I went over. They did go over, I think it was 10,000 hours of YouTube videos from 2022 to 2024. And it was mostly academic videos, so mostly professors talking in courses. And they noticed that the word delve dramatically increased since the release of, I think it was ChatGPT 2. And ever since that study, it has been widely studied and known that the use of LLMs on a wide global scale has adapted people's minds so that they speak more with more homogeneity, because ChatGPT really likes the word delve. Or, for example, people
I feel like I used that long before AI, but yeah,
perhaps, right? Depends on who you are, right? Or people now studies are coming out. I think several of them have come out in the last 6 months that have shown that globally people are treating each other more like robots because they're used to interacting with LLMs. And because these LLMs are anthropomorphized to them, they internalize the anthropomorphization, whatever the word is. They then talk to other fellow human beings that way because that's how they see everything. So again, it's not that there are no utilities. It's that the utilities you get, are they worth the cost when you look at the costs holistically, societally, economically, factually, objectively, politically, medically, all of it. The scientific community, for example, inundated with AI generated papers. Their peer reviewers can't keep up. It used to be, I think it was at the end of 2023, nutritional niche of the scientific community said, please stop sending us AI generated papers. We can't keep up. Now it's the whole scientific community. There's so many AI generated papers. They can't even tell what's what anymore because they don't have the means to do it. What happens if we continue down that path and 3 or 4 years down the road, we realize 80, maybe 70% of our science is all based on AI generated slop? How are we going to discern the good stuff from the bad stuff? It's going to be destructive. Lawyers and judges are facing this too, et cetera, et cetera. What is the cost?
I feel like some of these are less the cost of LLMs, though obviously there's a lot of driving force behind it, and more the inability of institutions to adapt to them. Right?
But
like when I see like
friction,
education,
though.
right? Well, yeah, sure, but what I'm saying is like when I see professors, right? And they're like, it's like, look, dude, at a certain point, you have to give up letting kids write a paper at home. Like at a certain point, you just have to recognize that this technology is out there and that it's at a point where a lot of you, especially some of the boomers, are gonna have difficulty perceiving it. And
Yeah.
it's like, so for example, there's a Google Docs, right? One of the things that Google Docs can do is it records everything you're typing as you're typing it in
Yeah.
real time.
Right.
Right. And so it's like, okay, well, at a certain point, if I'm a professor, I'm going to be like, look, you have to write your paper in Google Docs. You're not allowed to write your paper. You're not allowed to copy and paste your paper into Google Docs. Right. Like, because I need to see that you're writing the paper and I need to have evidence and proof that you're writing dumb shit and that you're editing it and that you know what I mean? Like, and not copied and pasted shit. And
Right.
then I don't give a fuck if you use an LLM, right? I don't care if you like, pull a quote from somewhere. If it's wrong, I'm gonna fuck you up for it, right? Because you didn't properly source it, because I'm trying to teach you how to properly read research and things like that, right? But like, for example, like one of the things that I've done, and this is like I would say a great usage of LLMs, right? Is I'll say, find me 10 papers about this.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of using scholar.google and then trying to use keywords and missing research, I'll just get 10 things and then I'll go actually read the research myself.
Right.
And 2 of them will be hallucinated fucking pieces of research that don't exist. But it doesn't matter because it's as a search engine, it's way fucking better than Google. Right. It's phenomenally better than Google as a search engine. And if I'm preparing for a debate, especially, I can very quickly find research and then I can go, okay, this one is trash, right? Because I looked at the methodology and it's trash. This one has 3 citations, so it's not landmark research. Okay, this one has 120 citations. It was put in 2018. I can look up the doctor on Google Scholar and see that he or she has 10,000 citations in the last 10 years. I'm going to read this piece of research.
Right.
And like, that's an incredibly helpful tool. So it's like, some of it, I absolutely agree with you that like, it's destructive. But some of that is like, is it like, to what degree is it that the LLM is destructive versus to what degree is our inability to recognize that it's destructive and then properly adapt the use cases so that it can be functional where it's functional, and so we can limit its destructive capacity by adapting to its usage, as opposed to just like throwing our hands up and being like, oh, either we need the government to do this or, oh my God, AI is this big problem. It's like, is it really that fucking hard as a professor to demand, no, this must be written in Google Docs and then properly cited? You know what I mean? Like, is that really that fucking difficult?
I agree. I completely agree. But here's the problem. We have history we can point to where we know human behavior is difficult to adapt. And I would point to social media. Social media was a overall, well, okay, how about this? I'll be charitable to social media. It had destructive elements as well as usefulness. I think everyone can agree with at least that much. There are elements to social media that ruined people's brains, and there are elements to social media where it was extremely useful. Keeping in touch with family across the world, absolutely useful. So my argument is this. It's not that LLMs are not useful. It's that the cost, you cannot change humans. Humans generally, it's been proven time and time again that humans are going to do human things. Okay, so that's a wash. Social media proved it. We've had that for a long time.
I mean, Margaret Sanger would disagree.
Yes, of course.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
We can maybe outbreed. No,
We could. Yes, we could. Sure.
Technically speaking, though, we could forcibly increase the IQ.
We could technically do it.
Generations.
Yeah, that's right. That's so. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So
it got dark, but you know what I mean.
It got dark. Yeah, I know. But I mean, anyway. Yeah. Okay. So if we just accept the fact that humans are going to be humans, then there is still a way out. I think we can still have our cake and eat it too. I think that's really what I'm trying to say. You don't need to go down this path. The path that we're going down is people stating, I have usefulness for it. What about my usefulness? What about my utility? Yes, I agree that these things are there, but the cost is too high. And there's an alternative. And the alternative is stuff that we have had in the past. We've proven that we can do it in the tech industry. And if you're going to make the argument that you should vote with your dollar economically, then the dollars being put into this thing make this thing bad, and they are further in a way, it's kind of a causal thing. You take something that has bad elements and you exacerbate its bad elements by dumping this much money into it and making it ubiquitous. So the amount of people who have access to it is an access unlike we've seen pretty much ever before, except maybe cars, perhaps, other things that people have wide access to. Even now in like African countries, people have more access to AI than they do websites. So the ubiquity of it is like, you're just taking all this money. I don't know if that's
true. Let me grok it real quick.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Use more of that. Yeah. Hang on. I got to pay my energy bill. It just went up like $5 thanks to you. But this is really the problem. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Good. I hate you.
I mean this genuinely. I celebrate every time somebody loses their job to AI.
Yeah.
I do.
Good. Okay.
I do. Well, it makes me excited. That being said, the problem is if the market is not allowed to adequately respond, right?
Right.
If the market, like, I'm perfectly happy to see people lose their job to AI. But if that is then supplanted by like state intervention, right, then we have a serious problem. But
it looks very different, doesn't it? Yeah.
Right. Like, yeah, absolutely. Right. Like if the market is allowed to do this and all of these billionaires lose a bunch of their fucking money when the bubble pops,
right,
then that doesn't bother me. You're the dumbass that put a bunch of money into a product that you didn't have any proof would actually be valuable.
Right.
It's the fascism of the merger of the corporate and the state that I have an issue with as like a full-blown capitalist.
And for what? So if you take that holistically, that's my argument. And for what? Let's say, for example, let me reframe the argument, right? So how about this? If there was an actual scientifically proven path to AGI, some magic button, there was, oh yeah, we're going to get there. And then the government stepped in. You'd probably feel a little bit different about the government stepping in on that.
No, I'm completely radical compared to the average person. I'm an anarchist. I want the destruction of the government on everything.
But it would surely alter the opinion you'd have as to why they're stepping in and whether there's any benefits to that. Like it would have to alter the landscape, right? So this is the problem: is that if AGI was actually provably possible and the government tied hands, you could make a positive case for it. At least then you could be like, well, at the very least, we're going to get like something better, more intelligent than humans. Like there's some positives that could come out of this. But I would have the exact opposite reaction.
Okay. The more
I would too.
And terrified.
Okay, because then I'm talking to the wrong person.
Like I do not trust the government to handle parking tickets.
I would agree.
Government to handle the process of artificial general intelligence.
That would scare me. That would scare me greatly. I guess my point is that it's that at the very least it would change the way you think about it, and if you compare it to what we are actually getting out of this today, and you take the whole thing into account, including government potential intervention or tying hands of. Then what the hell are we getting for this? Because I don't see that the value outweighs the cost right now, especially when we have an escape hatch, which is the smaller versions of these things, the more refined, tuned versions that actually operate very well. So I just don't get it.
I can't really find any point of disagreement there. You know, I just genuinely, I just hope that the government stays out of it. That's my primary mode of analysis in most things, and in just in generally in what I do. Right, like
Yeah.
my role as a content creator is the proliferation of my political and moral philosophy,
Yeah, that's
right, which
right.
is
Yeah.
anarcho-capitalism mixed with objectivist philosophy.
Mhm.
Um, right, and so yeah, I mean, I'm okay with billions of dollars being wasted and increasing the price of energy and making our lives a living hell because of malinvestments, um, in the long run, because if the state isn't involved, because if the
Yeah.
state isn't involved, then the bubble pops, and then we can know for sure, right? Like I'm not a god in knowing whether or not the juice is worth the squeeze,
Yeah.
right? I just know that, like, eventually, if enough wealth is transferred to these companies and these companies produce nothing of value, then it pops, right?
And
And
there's your
then
proof. Yeah.
right, and there's my proof. Like, so it's like, yeah, like, like I just, when I see people bitch about data centers taking up power and stuff like that, it's like, yeah, I hate it. I hate that that's happening, that you're paying more for energy. But my primary mode of analysis is not, and this is why Palantir or Meta is evil. My primary mode of analysis is, well, why do you only have one power company, motherfucker?
Right.
Because the government has completely stepped into the domain of power and made a monopoly that
Yeah.
is made it illegal for other power companies to compete with you. And it's like, if we had an open market, maybe, or we had, like, localized, deregulation of nuclear energy, so that,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like Meta tried to make a fucking small nuclear
That's right.
facility,
That's
and
right.
then they got legally stopped because of not even an endangered species, but a species that may be close to endangered, of frog, that may be harmed by the heating of water
Yeah.
that was at this facility.
Yeah. But at the same
And
time, they're allowed
I'm
to
just
build
like,
stuff and destroy other. Yeah.
I'm just like, thank you for increasing our energy bills, government, by making it like, dude, I would much rather have all of the shit Meta's doing being maintained via a fucking nuclear reactor.
Right.
Like, duh,
Same.
like, so
Yeah.
it's like, it's just like, so I kind of, I see many of the problems that you're like associating with LLMs. I hear your argument. I understand. You're like, hey, this is a bad investment. It doesn't work. It's kind of reached its cap. And the natural progression of that is scalability. And a corporate power, when they want scalability, what do? They turn to the government.
They turn to the government.
And so
Yeah.
all of those red flags are even from a libertarian perspective, are like ringing for me. Or like all those warning things are
Yeah.
ringing, or however you want to describe it. I don't know why I'm fucking up two analogies in a row, but whatever. Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like my analysis and my solution to this is probably radically different, which is just get the government out of all of this shit. Get the
Yeah.
government out of energy, get the government out of regulating AI, get the government out of funding any of this shit. Don't let the government buy any of these products. Right? It's like why do we have a bunch of contracts with AWS? People
Yeah.
are bitching about the price of AWS, and now they're buying their own shit to run their own servers. It's like, maybe if we had a truly free market where the government wasn't protecting one company over
That's
another
right.
company, RAM wouldn't be so expensive, because people wouldn't be, because there would be other scalable, economies of scale competitors to AWS, right? And therefore you wouldn't have a bunch of individuals buying RAM, which is only exacerbating the RAM market, right?
Yes.
Like, there are all of these other kind of economic factors. So
I completely agree. By the way, I completely agree. I think the bare minimum needs to be that the government has to stay out. I think it's going to be very appealing for the government to step in, not necessarily because of the money, but because of the amount of data that's captured by these things. It's going to be
yeah,
very, very,
it's
very
very
appealing.
enticing.
It's
Yeah,
it's enticing, and
I
I
mean,
think
I mean,
it would be more
Edward Snowden
enticing.
proved
Yes,
15 years ago that the
that
government was building giant data centers
that's right.
to track all of our information.
Yeah,
And then the only thing that happened from that to this day is that Edward Snowden and his partner have a baby in Russia, and he's a Russian citizen. and and uh James, I can't remember his name, the guy who he provably lied to Congress, works for CNN now.
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I can't remember his
That's
name
it.
either.
That's all that
Yeah,
happened. Nobody went to jail. No
yeah,
regulations changed.
yeah,
FISA courts didn't really significantly change.
yeah.
Nothing changed.
It's all the
And we're
same.
like, obviously the government did more of that
Yep,
because nothing
yep,
stepped in the way, right?
yep.
And so it's with no shock to me that the government wants access to all of the
All
data
that
from
nice
LLMs.
private data that people are spilling their secrets. Yeah, and I think they probably want this version of LLMs more than they want AGI, because AGI you can't control, but these things you
Mm-hmm.
can. So that's my bare minimum concern right now is
I
because
never thought of it that way. Ooh,
yeah,
because I mean, like if presumably we're all in a race to AGI, and we're all kind of, there's so many people are operating under this like
yep,
lie that LLMs are the means to get there.
yep.
But maybe you're right. No one really actually genuinely wants AGI
They just want to get
because
everybody in front of LLMs with a promise of AGI. It's the carrot. And then the data, which is what government and
mm,
tech has been operating on since the dawn of time, you can make that case like you have. Yeah,
mhm.
of course they want this thing. And of course they're going to get in bed together. That greatly concerns me because, exactly to your point, if this thing is stupid, I would love to see it fail in the market, because then it means that we can fix it after. Yes, it's painful, very, very painful, especially for people like me. I really don't have much. I'm hanging on by a hair's thread here. So it would suck. But at the very least, I would then know, like yourself, right? You'd have the comfort of knowing, oh, okay, we're past that. It popped. Let's move on, please. Let's go on to the better thing, right? But if the government steps in, that's not going to happen, at least not anytime soon, right? And that's a huge problem. Huge problem.
Yeah.
So, but my ideal scenario is just remove the
Mhm.
thing entirely and replace it with better systems that I know we have. But at the very minimum, please don't get in bed with the governments. But everything I'm seeing is exactly what you're seeing, and I agree with you 100%. If they're not already in bed together, they're about to be heavily and very openly in your face. And what's going to happen then? Not good stuff. I don't think it's going to be good stuff.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because, there was a presumption, whether true or false, even 15 years ago, that like elements of authoritarianism and socialism and interruption into the market was very unpopular amongst conservatives, right? That liberals, neoliberals especially, and even full blown communists, they were perfectly fine with like more and more state intervention and control in the market for presumably good reasons, and that's as nice as I can be. Um, but what we're seeing is the especially with like Gen Z males, this fascistic reaction to the socialism that has crippled so many of their lives.
Yeah,
And now I don't see like the general right wing is perfectly fine with the government controlling everything, so long as they do it under their value set,
that's it.
right? Which is like very, very reminiscent. I know it sounds crazy, and people meme about it all the time because it's so overplayed, but it just reminds me of classical fascism, right? It's like classical fascism didn't come about because the right wing decided all of a sudden they wanted a bunch more government. Classical fascism and Nazism came about because communism was gaining strength, and they responded by adopting all of the government controls, you know, but doing so under a value set of right wing values like racial identity, pro family, pro social behavior, maintaining the market, but completely essentially destroying the market because everything was under the state control. I mean, you look at like Nazi Germany and like the Strength Through Joy program or the largest labor union ever created. I mean,
Right.
it was complete government command control over the economy. And like, I'm seeing all of the same hints occurring now in our own thing. And it's coinciding with this usage of this massive malinvestment in AI,
Yeah.
and I think you've made the case very well of this need for scalability that almost necessitates, if those businesses are going to survive, to have a fascistic partnership with the state
Yep.
for massive amounts of data and for a kind of illiberal usage of data and non-voluntary means of capturing data through systems like healthcare industry and things like that.
It's very dangerous. And
yeah, fuck,
I
man, you're
I
you've
lean
blackmailed me in a whole new way. I'm still believe in AI, man. I still believe that
generally,
AI, like generally,
yes,
but I think you've made
I'm
a
with you.
great case for how LLMs are like not the fucking way to do it.
It's the
Um,
wrong way. There is a good way to do it. We have a good path. We have a better path.
mhm.
It's not perfect, but it's way better. If you're whether you're on the right or the left, this should scare you, because whoever gets into power next is going to have more power, more access to more power, the more these things continue to escalate economically, data wise, all of the stuff we talked about. So it doesn't really matter where you land on the scale of things. What ultimately happens in these scenarios is that people like you and me get all our dollars taken for, and the value that we get out of it is not worth the cost. And oftentimes you don't know the cost until it's way too late. That's usually how it goes. Yeah, all of a sudden you're looking back going, "Oh crap, I didn't see that one coming, but it was staring you in the face the whole time." And I have a kid,
My,
and I worry about
I'm
my
so
kid's
worried.
future, you know?
I'm so worried because it feels like there are only two reactions the Western governments will take to this. Reaction number one is scalability, fascistic partnership with corporations, right? Neoliberalism and, faux conservatism win. And then reaction number two is basically the same thing under a different name, which is we need regulation, we need regulation, we
Yeah.
need regulation. Right? We need regulation to make sure that they pay more for energy. We need regulation to make sure for this. And that regulation is just going to benefit large corporate. Like
Yeah.
it's going to be the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Is I fear the fear mongering of anti AI just as much, because I'm worried that what all that will lead to is and as we know, large corporations love regulation
Yeah.
because they win and competitors lose.
Yeah. Yeah. They get to play the game. Yeah. I genuinely think that's where this is heading. I genuinely think that a lot of, maybe not a lot, but I genuinely think that people in the know are in the know, people at key positions in
Right.
whatever sphere you want to put this under. I think they know that what this game is. They know that
Mhm.
there's a hardcore limitation here and that we've reached it. They know what to do next, and this is what they're going to do next. And the government's going to have a participatory role in this, for better or for worse, most likely for worse.
Mhm.
And that, yeah, that scares the hell out of me. And
Can
then,
you, after this, because I feel like we're getting to a point where we're kind of wrapping up,
sure, yeah, yeah.
dude, I appreciate you coming on so much.
No, thanks for having
Um,
me on. Yeah,
no, it's a great conversation.
I agree.
Could you send me some of that research on the um inefficiency and like the arguments you made regarding different research on fine tuning and why fine tuning is just leading to unintended consequences, and like why industry experts kind of believe that we're reaching a limit or close to the limit or maybe have already reached the limit on
Yeah.
like the productive capacity of LLMs?
Yeah, I'll find a few of the studies I've covered, or
Mhm.
maybe I'll point you to some of the shorter videos. They tend to be like 10, 15-minute videos going over some
That
of them.
works too. That works too.
Um,
They can
and
be
I'll
an hour
send
long. I'll just plug them in the Grok.
Son. I'm sorry, kid. You're not going to eat tonight. Sorry. Yeah. He's got to look up the videos on Grok. I'm sorry. That's how it works. Yeah. Yeah, I can do
Who
that
has
for
all
you.
that time in the day?
Yeah, who has all that time? Where's it? Yeah, of course. We got to save you a few hours so my kid can go hungry. Yeah, that's how it goes.
I'm still going to use Grok. I'm still going to do it.
I
You
know
know what I
you
mean?
are.
But
I know you are.
I'm not going to lie about it.
I know, I
Um,
know.
and
I
it still has functional utility in my life.
Yes. I don't think you're a
Without a
bad
doubt.
person for using it. I don't think anyone's a bad person for using it. I want to be clear.
Also, I
I
hate IP. So all the anti AI art people can go fuck themselves. I hate that shit so much. I'm an artist and they're stealing my work. Shut the fuck up. I don't care that you can no longer make $20 for your furry porn on your Twitter account. I don't care. I laugh every time an artist gets priced out of the market by fucking LLMs making cool
there is an
backgrounds.
oversaturation of people who
I
do certain things, and programming is the same. Uh,
Like
I'm
I don't care,
yeah,
right? It's like if AI makes cool fucking pictures for me to put as backgrounds on my fucking on my shit, I don't care. I cannot be bothered. But then again, I'm anti IP, so I don't think you own your work. So I don't care that LLMs are trained on it. But it is fucking kind of hilarious that we have all these IP laws, and then like this entire industry, they're just like, but not for this. It's like,
yeah,
you
because
know what I mean?
what do
It's
you
like, when
do?
did they get this special permission to
Right,
copy that shit? Like, I'm against IP, so I don't care that it's trained on other people's IP. But I just find it hilarious that like every major big billion-dollar industry has just been like companies and lawyers coming in and being like, this thing that's illegal, well, now it's not illegal because we have enough money. You know what I mean? Like Uber, right? They just were like taxi medallions and licensing. We'll just
right.
break the laws on that. I'm all for it. Fuck taxi medallions and government licensing. But it is kind of funny that they just kind of came in, or like Polymarket and Kashi,
Oh yeah,
or
right,
you know what I mean? Like it's just like all
right.
of
I
this
forgot that.
gambling is illegal, but we won our court cases, so now we're billionaires. It's like
Yeah,
that's funny how that worked. Kind of interesting that you got to do that when no one else did. Okay. And
yeah,
open AI and shit is kind of the same thing with IP and art. It's like all of a sudden, because I saw this thing and it was like Sony is going to go after people, you know, for utilizing their IP. And then like I made like a joke on like Twitter and I was like, "Hey Grok." I was like, "Am I going to go to jail if I ask you to generate an image of Spider-Man?" You know
right,
what I mean? Like, and then
yeah,
cuz I was just making a joke about the fact that AI can do this all day long and
right,
nobody gives a fuck. And then of course Grok was like, "We follow IP and blah blah blah." And I'm
yeah,
like, "Bitch, I've asked you so many questions and you don't." Like it's
yeah.
so hilarious that the open AI knew in this instance, you know, knew that like IP laws were a problem. But in my personal Grok shit, it's like you
It
have
just
no
doesn't
problem
care.
quoting thing. It doesn't care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think what's really going on with the IP stuff is that the law hasn't caught up with how to handle what this actually means. Because when you take source material and then you adapt it, it's kind of like the creative aspect of
It's like
YouTube.
fair use. Yeah.
Fair use, yeah, with YouTube, or like you can't just play a video, you got to transform it. So is this transformative, and the law hasn't just they don't know how to deal with it yet. I think that's what's really going on. I don't really have much of a leg or a dog in the race, rather, in terms of IP. I would much rather have humans generate good work and get appropriately paid for it, and let the market play out the good stuff from the bad stuff. That'd be my ideal. But if it cat's out of the bag right now, and how the hell are you going to regulate something like that? Good luck getting people who actually do run private LLMs to not generate pictures that are sourced from your material. How
Yeah,
on
that
earth are
shit
you
is
going
so
to?
hilarious too.
Yeah,
Like it's like
how are you going to do that? Like,
do you have any idea how fucking retarded expensive it would be if you had to
right?
give like a penny to every person's art that
It's
was used in AI? Like it's
yeah,
going to cost me $10 every time I
yes,
say generate an image, especially when I need to generate like 40 of them to get the one I like.
yeah.
You know
It's
what I mean?
it's kind of it's a bad it's what would you say? It's a battle that's going to be really difficult for any one side to actually win at this point in time. Ultimately, if the people who are frustrated can hold out, and if you actually have some chops and you're good at what you do, you're going to stand out. This will pass and you will still have a place, because people
Yeah, I mean,
let's assume for a moment AI takes over a majority of art. There's to this day, people are still handcrafting like benches and chairs and stuff with
what's
wood, because there's
it's
an
the
art
difference
there.
of the, you know, not to get too ANCAPy right here at the end, right? But like value is subjective, right? That is just it's just true. And to believe in socialism or communism, you have to believe that it isn't, that it's objective, or
Right.
that they can discover the objective value of something. And it's
Right.
just it's not, right?
Yeah.
And human beings are obviously going to some percentage, probably a majority,
Yeah.
are going to have some value behind the idea that that a human being created a piece of artwork.
Yes.
Even if AI could make something that moves you in the same way or
Yeah.
something, there's some value to the human thought and experience, because art is ultimately what I think art is just it's symbolic communication of ideas that are difficult to explain in narrative form,
Yeah, I could
right?
see that. Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
that's basically what art is, right? It's like
Yeah.
I have a thought, I have an idea, I want to communicate it, but I can't quite put it into words,
Right.
or I can't, or and the same would be true of a poem or something, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like I can generate a billion pieces of fucking AI art and come up with cool images because at the moment all I want is some cool images.
Right.
But like I also remember I've been to a ton of art museums, and I'm a hater of modern art. I think because I think most modern art is evil art because I think it um, projects evil ideas. But that's set that
Okay.
aside.
Yeah. I have no idea. Yeah.
Right. I think the values are laden within the art itself, and when the
Interesting. Huh?
values are collectivist or socialist or anti-individualist, then I would
Hmm.
classify that as evil because I would say the values inherent are evil. Also, especially when they're anti-aesthetic. You know what I mean? Like
Oh, I
brutalist
see.
architecture, things like that.
Oh. Okay.
But I
Okay.
remember, but I'll never forget. I went to this rich couple's house when I was doing some tile work when I was a teenager,
Right.
and it was like it's kind of one of those I'm going to be a little racist here. Sometimes you go into wealthy black people's houses and like they feel a disconnect from their culture because they no longer identify with black culture because they're enmeshed within white culture, and
Right.
they feel a little bit of like identity confusion, and so they
Right.
try and recapture their African or black culture. And a
Yeah.
lot of times you'll see that in the artwork that is in their home. And I remember I went into this
Huh.
dining room of this wealthy black family, and there was like this impressionist painting of Johannesburg, South Africa, at the turn of like the Industrial Revolution.
Mhm.
And so what you saw was segregation, you saw apartheid, but you also saw traditional African garb and culture, as well as like the beginnings of industrial revolution with these paintings. And so you
Right.
saw like white people in business suits and Afrikaans people, or Bantu, we'll say Bantu, sorry for anybody that's upset, like
Yeah.
Bantu
Yeah.
people, and things like that in like traditionalist garb. And it was like this zoomed out, and like I remember it was just like there was like it conveyed an emotion to me
Yeah.
that like maybe AI could capture, but I doubt. Right? Like I felt something in that, to
Yeah.
the point where like the person in the job site was like, "Dude, what the fuck are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh shit," because like I had
Yeah. You
zoned
zoned
out.
out.
I'd
Yeah.
been taken in by this piece of artwork
Yeah.
and like felt so strongly about it.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, and I've been to a ton of museums that I've never been able to recreate that experience at any art museum in the same way that I had for like that was like a pivotal moment for me because it just
Yeah.
like communicated so many ideas in one piece.
Yeah.
People are going to value that
Absolutely.
regardless of what AI does.
Yeah.
People are going to value that there was a symbolic message that you were attempting to convey, with this piece of art in a way
Yeah.
that like, and like people will still pay for that shit. Like
Absolutely.
they always will.
Yep. I really don't have much to add to that. I just completely agree. Like anything that people are going to value, people are going to value, and it happened with manufacturing, where certain jobs were taken away in large amount, but people still do some of that by hand because people value
Right.
that
Like going to a
handcrafted
cobbler
thing.
to like
Yeah,
fix
yeah.
your expensive leather shoes.
Right, right. Like there's something to that, you get a good feeling out of that. There's I think that these people just need to hold out a bit, and if you've got chops, you're gonna be fine. It's gonna be okay.
Mhm.
But that's kind of an independent argument of the stuff that we were talking about before. It's kind of like people conflate these two things, but I don't think they need to be conflated. I think
Mhm.
you can remove that portion out of the entire argument and still make the case that like, hey, this is still a stupid investment, IP or no IP. It's still bad. And then maybe additionally the IP thing, depending on who you are. But I don't think that's needed to make the case that it's bad investment.
Well, I am an enlightened genius, and I predicted all of this conversation
You
in
mean
terms of
Grok
its
did?
effect.
Now you asked
Uh,
Grok beforehand, and it told you this is how it's going to play. I know how this works.
I actually didn't. I actually just listened to like a couple of your random videos,
I
like while I
appreciate
was
it.
like walking the dog and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and like, but I didn't do a ton of research.
No, that's fine.
Mostly
Yeah.
because like, dude, you seriously, specifically, you need to make a fucking video that is like on your channel when you
Okay.
first go to your channel. That
Okay.
just is like why AI is bad, or like why there's a bubble or something. You need to make like because like going to your channel is just like playing Russian roulette with your ideas of streams. And then it's just like I click on something random and it's like, here's this piece of research we're going to talk about. Like,
yes,
you clearly are a good communicator and you have a lot of cool ideas. Like, but you got, you know, I'm just saying.
no, I completely agree. I'm terrible at actually communicating like the general concepts. I get too far into the weeds.
You're not at all. It's just you need one video that like that is like a teaser for who you are as a streamer.
I agree.
So that
you're
people
totally
watch other
right.
shit.
I'm going to take that to heart and I'm going to think about it. I will say this too. I have thought about, I am working on a, I guess, kind of a script, kind of on a documentary that goes from the sort of the 80s all the way to modernity to kind of describe the entire process of how this plays out. So it'll be like a 1 hour thing that just lays out the whole thing on a general, overview.
Yeah, that'd be great. You just have that as like your like top of your channel or
right.
something. Put it in a. You can organize your layout.
I can, or yeah,
so that when people click on you, because
yes.
it's already a fucking nightmare to find Spiro Floropoulos.
I know it's the stupid Greek name that I have. Damn it! I know.
I'm sorry, but it's just it is. And then you go there, and it's just your last video. I'm shit talking you, and I'm sorry.
No, but you're right.
I love because I like this conversation.
You're right.
And you deserve more views, and you don't have them because your channel is confusing.
I'm going to defend myself just a touch. It's difficult to find time to do everything that I need to do, but that's not a very good excuse.
Mine's bad too.
Yeah. It's not a very good excuse. You're 100% right. Like a 4-minute like opener. Here's like a general hit list of things I do and why. That I think that's fantastic. I will take you up on that. I'll take your idea.
All right. Let me actually, hi, I'm Fabian Liberty. I'm an anarcho-capitalist. If you want to find out more and you want to learn about anarcho-capitalist philosophy, objectivist philosophy, or watch debates against socialism of the right wing or the left wing variety, come check me out, Fabian Liberty on X or YouTube. And for my people, Spiro, where can they find you?
So I am on X and YouTube and Kick and Rumble and Twitch and all of that. Usually you can find me by only two names. I try and keep it short because I have a stupid long Greek name, Spiro Floropoulos. I'm sure some description, something will be somewhere, and I'll have this on my channel as well. Or Spiro Don FL on X. Those are good ways to communicate with me. And I do all kinds of videos. I'm a programmer by trade, and I go into stuff about AI and the tech industry in general, and I'm building a game. I do all kinds of wide things. Yeah.
What's the game? What do you make?
So I have an old game from the Super Nintendo days. It's my favorite game of all time, my personal favorite of all time. And you basically build a fleet of ships and you travel the world. Back in those days, the Super Nintendo was very limited hardware, and the things they achieved in that game, technically speaking, were like, it blew my mind. It had like an entire global economy, a micro economy, fleet management, very detailed systems, stats, etc. So I'm recreating that and adding my own twist, obviously, but I'm doing it in the most weird technical way possible. This might seem like gibberish talk to most people, but if you're a programmer, I'm doing it on the browser, using no third-party libraries. I use C, compile it to WebAssembly, and then I use just vanilla HTML, JavaScript, CSS, which is like an unheard of thing that programmers would be like, why the hell are you doing it this way? Because it proves my point that the tech industry has lost its way and that people don't know how to program anymore. And if a high school dropout like me can recreate a game like that in the most awkward, what is currently considered awkward, but not awkward to me, then what the hell is your excuse? What the hell is the tech industry's excuse for these poor games and poor software and poor LLMs and all of that? So that's what I'm doing. And one last thing, I have a 3D printer here, which is blurred out. But when the game is done,
reasons.
Yes, that's right. When it's done, when the game is done,
yeah, not making anything bad.
I'm not. I neither confirm or deny. Okay, there's not. Okay, don't look up my history on that. Anyways, but I'm gonna 3D print like a little cartridge, a USB cartridge. So if people want an actual physical copy of the game, which is something that's also kind of been lost, you can also get it as well. So yeah.
That's amazing. Spiro is trying to make Roller Coaster Tycoon again.
That's kind of, it's not that far off, honestly. Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know what I'm doing to
uh,
myself.
and man, you know, I don't have an outro now because I'm normally a live streamer.
Okay,
So
well,
peace.
all right. Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. This was a great conversation, and I would be happy to have you on for a convo in the future if you wouldn't mind, Scott.
Not at all.
Okay,
All right,
that'd
I'm
be
going to hit
great.
end recording now.